International Relations and Cooperation in South Africa says there are still no final plans for the burial of Nathi Mthethwa, the country's ambassador to France. This comes as this post-mortem is underway in Paris. Mthethwa reportedly fell to his death at a hotel in France last Tuesday. Circumstances surrounding his death are a subject of investigation by the French authorities and a team of South African investigators, which has been dispatched to France. Spokesperson for the Department of International Relations and Cooperation in South Africa, Crispin Piri, explains.
The funeral at this stage is still contingent on the late ambassador now being repatriated. And as we understand it, the post-mortem process is still underway, so the repatriation processes will only kick in once we know that that element has been concluded. To the extent that there are talks about a death certificate, I think the family can best speak more to that. But we do know that the post-mortem process is still underway, and once those results have come in, we will then be able to start the repatriation process alongside the family. We are guided mainly by what the family's wishes are at this point.
Tanzania has dismissed some of the country's soldiers following a video that has gone viral on social media. The video shows members of the military criticizing the government. The BBC's Andrew Ochieng.
They are afraid of being too hopeful, some of them have said, because they have been disappointed so many times before. And many of them are very angry with Benjamin Netanyahu because they accuse him of
We do apologize for playing this wrong sound there. A peace deal between Rwanda and the Democratic Republic of Congo has hit yet another setback after both sides failed to agree on an economic framework. The U.S. brokered deal was expected to unlock billions of dollars in investment to boost cross-border trade and to assist end years of conflict in the Eastern DRC. There's ABC's Crispin Okamringa reports.
The renewed tensions follow a dramatic ruling by a Congolese military court which sentenced former President Joseph Kabila to death in absentia for treason and war crimes linked to the M23 rebellion. Kabila, who ruled the DRC for 18 years, has not been seen in public for months.
And lastly, Israeli airstrikes on Gaza continued over the weekend despite growing optimism that a peace deal could be reached soon. On Saturday, Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said he hoped to announce the release of all remaining hostages in the coming days. Hamas has agreed to free the captives in exchange for Palestinian prisoners and a ceasefire, but the group fears a return to hostilities. The BBC's Barbara Platt-Asher.
They basically have no confidence that Israel will not restart the war as soon as it has its hostages back, and that's all Hamas's bargaining power. So they want Mr. Trump to guarantee to them that that will not happen. So the same stumbling blocks as always, but the difference this time is that Mr. Trump is very keen to be able to declare a peace deal as soon as possible, and he's also very engaged and willing to put, so far anyway, pressure on both sides.
For any news stories you'd like to share with us, please send us an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za or call us at +27 11 714 4459. Channel Africa News, I'm Oneli Tsinzi.
SABC News. The African Perspective.
And coming up in your sports news, the Sawa Pyramids ease past APR to reach the Total Energies CAF Champions League second round, and defending champion Yannick Sinner out of the Shanghai Masters with a leg injury. We'll tell you more at the bottom of the hour.
New day, new stories. Start your morning right with Rise and Shine on Channel Africa.
Time now for our Africa Roundup. This is the segment of the show that comes after the 6 a.m. news every day here on Rise and Shine, where we bring you up to speed to stories making headlines in and around our continent, as compiled by our reporters, our researchers and editors. So it's also a way that we can expect things to develop in the new day as far as news are concerned with those stories. So today we start with Malawi, where Malawi's Peter Mutharika pledged to tackle government corruption and revive the country's struggling economy after being sworn in on Saturday for a second term as president.
The honeymoon of looting is over. You are now dealing with a different president. And you're looking at a different president. I will not allow anyone to destroy this country under my watch. And I mean anyone, whether you are party official or whoever you are, I will go after you and understand that. The Vice President and I want to see discipline and sanity everywhere in the government. We'll clean up the house, restore discipline and integrity in government as we challenge every Malawian to change our mindset.
3 South African political parties, Build One South Africa, Rise Mzansi, and the Good Party, have joined forces to contest the 2026 local government elections under a single banner. The new coalition, called Unite for Change, says it will focus on 5 key priorities. Those are ethical leadership, job creation, reliable public services, tackling crime and corruption, and modernizing service delivery through digital technology. The parties announced the move in Johannesburg, stressing that their individual organizations will continue to exist. Zara Groenewald reports.
The founding members say they've agreed to share leadership responsibilities within the Leaders' Council, made up of representatives from all 3 parties.
We have agreed that we're going to have a council of leaders so that that doesn't become an issue who must lead. But I think we further agreed that to have an elective conference towards the end of 2027 or 2028.
The formation aims to respond to what it calls South Africa's most urgent challenge, the collapse of local government.
Local government is arguably the most important to get right, because that is where government interact the closest with the people.
The Church of England has appointed a woman as its leader for the first time. Dame Sarah Malili, currently the Bishop of London, has been named the next Archbishop of Canterbury. A former Chief Nursing Officer for England, the 63-year-old Malili will succeed Justin Welby, who resigned nearly a year ago amid a safeguarding scandal. The Archbishop of Canterbury is the head of the Church of England and the ceremonial leader of the worldwide Anglican Communion. The BBC's Ali Makbul reports.
For the first time in nearly 500 years of history, the Church of England has nominated a woman to lead it. Dame Sarah Malili, the Bishop of London. She's been the Bishop of London since 2017, the first woman to take up that role, the third most senior member of clergy in the Church of England. And she will now, in an enthronement ceremony sometime in the new year, will become the new Archbishop of Canterbury. It was only under the tenure of the previous Archbishop of Canterbury, Justin Welby, that women were allowed to be bishops at all.
South African carrier Airlink is acquiring 10 new second-generation Embraer E2-195 jets as part of its plan to expand services domestically and across Africa. The aircraft are being procured through US-based aviation leasing company Azora, which purchases and leases aircraft to airlines worldwide. Nompumelelo Siziba attended the formal handover in Brazil and reports.
Celebrating a concluded deal, SA Airlink is procuring 10 new second-generation E2-195 jet aircraft produced by Brazilian aircraft designer and manufacturer Embraer. The two companies have a relationship dating back nearly 50 years, with SA Airlink already operating and maintaining 68 Embraer-produced aircraft in its current fleet. With the new aircraft it's procuring having a longer range, simply meaning they can travel further across the African continent, Airlink has high expansion ambitions.
Opportunities like Nigeria would be an option for us with these new aircraft in terms of the distance. Potentially looking at some of the islands that we have around the coast of Africa. So anything where we can't currently reach become opportunities. If there's sufficient demand and the market wants it, then we can have a look at those options.
U.S. hip-hop mogul Sean Diddy Combs has been sentenced to more than 4 years in prison following his conviction on prostitution-related charges. The judge criticized him for allegedly subjecting 2 former partners to years of abuse. Alex Cohen has more.
A jury convicted him on 2 counts of arranging for paid male escorts to travel across state lines to take part in drug-fueled sexual performances with Combs' girlfriends while he recorded video and masturbated. The jury acquitted him on the more serious charges of racketeering and sex trafficking, which could have earned him a life sentence. Combs pleaded not guilty and is expected to appeal his conviction. The founder of Bad Boy Records, Combs is credited with elevating hip-hop's stature in American culture. The New York-born entrepreneur is one of the most prominent men in the entertainment industry to have faced trial on sex crimes charges. Prosecutors had pushed for Combs to spend about 11 years in prison, while defense lawyers pushed for his swift release.
That's how we come to an end of today's edition of the Africa Roundup. We'll do this again tomorrow after the 6 a.m. news. So next, we zoom into what's happened over the weekend, giving more analysis on some of the stories touched on the Africa Roundup as well as new ones. And we'll be speaking to our resident analyst with that, Mighty Jamie.
Africa, voici Abedi.
Oui, c'est moi.
Abedi est un passionné de musique dans l'âme. Il a un goût pour toutes sortes de musique et passe ses journées à écouter Channel Africa.
J'aime beaucoup la musique africaine.
OK. Devinez quoi? Channel Africa veut aider Abedi et les mélomanes du monde entier à découvrir encore plus de musique incroyable. C'est pourquoi Channel Africa appelle les artistes africains à soumettre leur musique. Chers artistes, n'oubliez pas de nous fournir toutes vos informations pertinentes à l'email adresse musique@channelafrica.co.za. Les soumissions sont votre chance d'être entendues, mais elles ne garantissent pas une playlist. Toutes les soumissions seront soigneusement examinées pour voir si elles répondent aux exigences de notre station. Channel Africa, la perspective africaine.
New day, new stories. Start your morning right with Rise and Shine on Channel Africa.
At 14 minutes past 6 Central African time, we now get into the segment of the show we call the Roundup Wrap, where we invite our resident analyst, Mighty Jamie, to talk to us about some of the stories highlighted earlier, as well as a throw forward into the week ahead. How are you, Jamie, this morning?
I'm very well. Good morning to you. Good morning to the listeners and the viewers.
You know, I was saying, because Peter's not well today, and I think there's like a round of COVID doing, the most. But I hope you are taking care of yourself and protecting yourself and wearing masks when you have to make speeches somewhere.
I'm doing my best, but I think it actually got me a few weeks ago. So I had a very difficult 2 weeks ago period.
Now you're
so
good.
I think it has done the rounds in the household where I reside already.
As long as you're good now, and you sound very healthy and happy.
What can I do now? At least I feel better.
Yeah. Okay, so today we start with Israel as part of our Roundup Wrap, and they've deported 29 more activists there, detained last week for joining a flotilla trying to deliver aid to Gaza. That's according to the Foreign Ministry. So the August flotilla is the latest challenge to Israel's naval blockade, which it says is legal. Why all these issues if this is legal?
Well, I think the whole challenge with this topic is that there's a contestation for the public imagination. And the flotillas as a historic strategy have always had some kind of difficulties with the Israeli government. These are not the first ones. This is quite a typical response for all of them, even prior to this particular conflict. So it's one of the things that I don't think helps Israel when they are making their case to the international community, but it's something that has happened quite significantly. And we've seen there were a lot of South Africans who were part of that particular flotilla, the grandson of Nelson Mandela being one of them, and other people who were part of it. So human rights group right now have raised the issues in terms of, the treatment of these people on the flotilla. It was almost inevitable that this would happen the way that it happened. I think if you try to take the conversation a little bit further, there have been some developments in terms of Hamas has indicated now that they're willing to make some kind of a peace deal with Israel. And of course, if that peace deal includes dealing with the issue of the hostages, the remaining hostages, that perhaps could now point to a direction forward. I think there's a appreciation and a concern that if there's not any resolution of this matter, while Netanyahu has a powerful ally such as Donald Trump, who's willing to give him everything and the kitchen sink, you may end up in a position where you are far worse off as people who are activists for Gaza, for the West Bank, if you don't make a deal at this particular point. So I'm not sure whether we will see anything materialize, because we've seen starts and stops of the peace process up until now. But whether or not we will see something happen which is more tangible remains to be seen. However, if Hamas is saying that they want to do a peace deal, and Trump is also communicating to Netanyahu that they need to do a peace deal, that could be something that assists, because the issue of the flotilla in and of itself is about the famine that the global community is now trying to deal with, that is unfolding in Gaza, and people are trying to get food and resources and supplies into Gaza as quickly as possible. If there is a peace deal, and if there is some kind of a human corridor that is then created, or a humanitarian corridor, then there may not be a necessity for these types of interventions going forward. But from the PR perspective, I think that the August flotilla did actually help the activists for the people in Gaza to profile the issue a little bit more, because it hasn't always been in the media in the same way that it used to be maybe last year. So it was something that from communications perspective was successful, even though it was inevitable that they would have these challenges from the Israeli government, which has a lot of right-wing entities and far right-wing entities in the government right now.
Has any of the aid that the flotilla was trying to bring into Gaza reached the people of Gaza?
It doesn't look like it has, and it doesn't look like it will. That particular aid package, I don't think will get to to its intended destination. Typically, they never do get to the intended destination, because the flotillas are always viewed as a hostile type of a thing from the Israeli government. I don't think that historically any of them have actually ever reached the intended destination. So they are a good communications exercise, and they do significantly raise the plight of the people. And as we know, there are many people concerned about the plight of the people. There's been the conversation about famine. We've seen some countries recognizing Israel. But in terms of getting most humanitarian aid into Gaza and into the West Bank, if it's needed there, you do need to have some kind of a resolution of some of the fundamental elements. So the fact that Hamas was saying that they're willing is a positive development, because sometimes the issue has really been what position Hamas is taking in terms of, are they going to give up the hostages? Are they not going to give up the hostages? And then it creates this roadblock that is then used by the right-wing government and extreme right-wing parties within that government to actually then derail the peace process further. So hopefully, if everyone is now willing to go to a negotiation table and Trump can put the pressure on Netanyahu, perhaps then this issue will be resolved in a way that humanitarian aid can go in. There's a lot in the air right now with this topic, because one of the other issues is going to be the Tony Blair plan. Is that really a thing that is going to be pushed forward, or was it just a negotiating strategy? We have no idea, but it looks as if Hamas is aware now that they could lose control of Gaza, because they have been the government of Gaza for a period of time. So this could be what is driving them on their side to say, okay, maybe we need to do a deal now and rebuild, as opposed to keep going and then end up with the situation where there's an international government of, Gaza as a territory.
Let's move to Peter Mutharika, who was inaugurated as Malawi's president on Saturday, staging a remarkable comeback there after leading the country from 2014 to 2020. He, of course, won the September 16 election with 56% of the vote, beating Lazarus Chakwera, the incumbent. What challenges will Mutharika face when it comes to tackling Malawi's economic woes? Because in his acknowledgement at Kamuzu Stadium, he spoke about Malawi's deep economic challenges.
Well, there are a lot of them, but we can focus on two. So number one, there are high levels of youth unemployment as things stand right now. And number two, there's also a high level of inflation. But I think I can add that they've been going through periods of drought, and the agricultural yields have not been particularly positive. And the impact of that has been that because there's a large rural population in Malawi, that has also affected people. So when you add those three together, the high unemployment, particularly for young people, and I'm using young people here broadly, we're talking about people under the age of 30, and the median age of the country is relatively low as well. So you got a lot of people who are unemployed, you got a high dependency ratio, a lot of people being supported, children, and some of the people who are elders also being supported by this underemployed group of people. Then you have a bad harvest, you have a drought, and then the inflation having sat at around 20% for the last 3 years. That then makes the cost of living quite exorbitant. And to be quite frank, in as much as he was trying to be positive about, they're going to be able to tackle those challenges, a lot of those challenges came into play under his administration. It was his administration that set everything up for failure, basically, because the challenge sometimes when these new leaders come in to Maboko, or as you saw in Malawi, people come in because they've been given a mandate by a frustrated population. But then they come in and they find that the mess is so bad. And as they're trying to fix that mess, the public gets frustrated with them. And sometimes things get worse. And in this particular instance, anybody who came into power in the period of the pandemic really got the worst end of the stick, because there were so many global factors that were contributing to economic failure that then it decapitated their capacity to fix the problems that they were elected to solve. And then people then got a nostalgia for the days when the problems were less significant, which were the pre-COVID-19 days. It's almost the same reason why Donald Trump won in America, because people were still looking back to his period of time saying, things were better under Donald Trump. And here, a lot of the Malawans were thinking, well, things were better under Mutharika. And also, we must remember the vice president, who a lot of people supported, died in that helicopter accident, the former vice president. And that, I think, derailed any new direction, because people would have voted for Salus Chilima, but he unfortunately passed away. And then you then had a situation now where they have to go either with, the devil they know, or this new challenge that they not really happy with, and they just went back to a nostalgic election. So it was the type of speech that he would give. He's obviously happy to be back. His family has been significant in the politics of Malawi for a long time now. But in terms of will he be able to resolve those issues that he's even identified, it'll be a tough wicket for him, to be quite honest.
All right, let's move to Madagascar now, where rival rallies took place on Saturday in the capital there, Antananarivo, after days of deadly youth-led protests. And these protests over shortages of water and electricity cuts, so basic services there. Thousands of pro-government supporters are gathered in the city centre, insisting they opposed a coup and wanted jobs. How serious is the threat to President Rajolina's government from these youth-led protests? They said to be Gen Z activists who are protesting. They even blocked or were blocked by heavy police as they tried to reach Democracy Square.
Well, these protests are quite significant, and we've seen a few Gen Z protests actually in Africa. There were some protests that were also happening in Morocco just a few days ago, which with a similar model. I think they've been inspired in part by the events in Nepal, but also in part by the events which have played out in places such as Kenya. So there are a lot of young people in Madagascar, a lot of youth unemployment, extremely high levels of poverty, and you've alluded to, there have been challenges with water access as well as electricity supply. So when people look at the fact that they don't have water, they don't have electricity, they don't have employment, the political elite seem to be living at the time of their lives, and there are high levels of corruption, it's a recipe for this relatively young group of people to then say, we're going to push and try to make sure that we can, get some delivery and all of that. And Rajoelina is nervous about this because he came into power in 2009 or thereabouts as a result of similar protests, where he was the one also leading youth into a protest situation. And then the army eventually did a coup and supported him to become the next leader of the country. So he's very sensitive to everything that is happening because he has been part of this. And this is why I think that now they've organized these counter protests and at the same time have tried to make sure that the full might of the state can also be used to stave off these young people from reaching another tempo and another level within this particular protest. So he's very sensitive to this because he was involved in similar protests and understands the power of this kind of disgruntlement for regime change and leadership change. It does not seem as if it's actually a coup or anything like a coup. It looks as if it's organic. The young people have seen these things happening across the continent and across the world, and they are pushing to improve the conditions of living for them. But this is where things stand right now. And a lot of young people have died in these protests. The last time I checked, the death count was, I think, about 7, and it could have gone up since that time. So it is a serious pushback from the state, and one that we should look at very carefully just to make sure that they're not going so far as to violate the rights of these young people to actually express and protest. Sometimes as a leader, people protest significantly. You also have to step down. It's part of the democratic process. It's not to say that it's a coup or anything to that effect. And President Rajoelina would totally understand the significance of that.
Right, let's come to South Africa now, just finally, where 3 political parties have decided to join forces. They build one South Africa party, the Good Party and Rise Mzansi. They're calling themselves Unite for Change, and they're going to be contesting the 2026 local government elections as a single entity. What impact do you see this formation of Unite for Change having on South Africa's political landscape?
It's an interesting play, and it may have some impact in terms of collectively they have 1%, and they may be able to raise a little bit more funding, having come together, and to use the fact that they have 3 different brands, which may appeal to different people who still support centrist politics. So they may be able to move from 1% to 5% if they play their cards right. The challenge is local government elections are notoriously difficult to win or to have an impact in, because people are not voting for the leaders nationally. They're voting for the individual who's campaigning in their ward. So it could have an impact. But I must say that at the top, the field is relatively crowded. You've got Umkhonto weSizwe, which is the new entrant, which dominated the last elections. You've got the historical parties, ANC, IFP, EFF, Democratic Alliance. And then you've got another new emergent party, which is the Mayabuya movement. And then now you have Unite for Change, not to mention all of the other smaller parties which still exist. But they may have a chance if they can figure out how to strategically contest in particular constituencies. But it looks to me like it's more of a play for 2029 than it is a play for 2026, and 2026 could be their pilot and their testing ground for a bigger game in 2029.
Mighty Jamie, thank you so much for chatting to us. Always great catching up with you on Mondays, and have a great rest of the week.
You too. Thanks for having me. And I hope you don't get any of that COVID.
No, I'm staying away from any of it. Thank you so much.
All right.
All right. Our resident analyst there, Mighty Jamie, giving us our roundup wrap for the 6th of October. Happy Monday, everybody. Let's say good morning to Onele Nzinzi now. She's got our news headlines.
SABC News. Headlines. The African Perspective.
Thank you, Asanda. The International Committee of the Red Cross says the situation in Sudan's Al-Fashir has reached a catastrophic level, with over 260,000 people trapped, surviving on a single meal a day, and medical teams working under fire. Thousands of people in Madagascar took to the streets in different parts of the country even over the weekend, the largest wave of protests the Indian Ocean island nation has witnessed in more than 15 years. And the U.S. President Donald Trump says his policy of attacking alleged drug cartel boats in the Venezuela's coast has been so effective that American forces can now target cartel operations on land. Channel Africa News, I'm Onele Mtsinsi.
SABC News. Headlines. The African Perspective.
At 6:32 Central African Time, let's say good morning to Musibudi Makura, who has our sports news.
Sports on Channel Africa. The African Perspective.
Thank you so much, Asanda. Very good morning from the sports desk. So Egyptian giants Pyramids FC underlined their title credentials with a dominant 3-0 win over Rwanda's APR in Cairo in Egypt on Sunday, completing a 5-0 aggregate triumph. This to book their place in the second preliminary round of the Total Energies Africa Cup of Nations tournament. Now, goals from Mustafa Abdal Raouf Zico as well as Ahmed Atif Otam and Mohamed Hamdi sealed a comfortable night for the reigning African champions, who were really troubled by the visitors at the Air Defence Stadium. So having already won 2-0 in Kigali thanks to a brace from Congolese striker Fiston Mayela, title holders Pyramids FC controlled the return leg from the outset. The victory also sets them up for a second preliminary round clash against Ethiopian Insurance. This as Pyramids FC now continue their campaign to defend their historic Total Energies CAF Africa Cup, the Champions League title rather, and that they won last year in their first ever season of playing in the CAF Champions League. Still in football news, African champions South Africa have advanced to the knockout stages of the 2025 FIFA World Cup Under-20 with a 2-1 defeat of the USA in the deciding Group E match played on Sunday in Chile. Now, the USA scored twice, the opener through Noah Cobb, as well as the other was an own goal from Joshua Winder, while Homelemo Kekana netted the winner to see South Africa finish second in the pool, tied on 6 points with the USA in first spot, and France behind them on 3 points after 3 matches. Now, South Africa came into that match needing to win, a draw or a lose by more than 6 goals to progress as one of the best third-placed sides. Now, coach Raymond Mdaka made just one change from the side that started in that 5-0 victory over New Caledonia as Tato Sibiya replaced Langelihle Pili. The win sees Amajita secure second spot in the group, with the USA remaining in first as they top the head-to-head mini table between themselves, South Africa and France, after beating the latter by 3-0. On to Formula One news now. Mercedes' George Russell stole the spotlight from the title contenders with a stunning pole position at the Singapore Grand Prix. Now, Russell's first pole since the Canadian Grand Prix in June, which he won, was achieved by 0.182 seconds from Red Bull's Max Verstappen. McLaren's championship leader Oscar Piastri took third place, with his title rival as well as teammate Lando Norris in fifth, behind Mercedes' Kimi Antonelli. Ferrari's Lewis Hamilton as well as Charles Leclerc took 6th and 7th place respectively. It was a Mercedes' first pole in Singapore since Hamilton set his famous lap back in 2018, and came as a surprise as George Russell gate crashed Norris as well as Piastri's fight. Well, let's take a listen to what George Russell had to say following that win in Singapore.
Yeah, it feels amazing, especially after what happened a couple of years ago. That was a bit of a missed opportunity, but we more than made up for it today. Just so grateful for the team. They did an amazing job this whole weekend. We don't really know where this performance came from, but really, really happy.
On to some tennis news now. Defending champion Yannick Sinner retired Sunday from the Shanghai Masters after suffering a leg injury in the third round match against the Netherlands' Talon Griekspoor. Now, the world number 2 began to experience issues in the fourth game of the third set and tried to persevere just before abandoning the match when he was trailing 6-7, 7-5 and 3-2. So after an evenly matched first set, the four-time Grand Slam winner showed his teeth in the tiebreak, hitting 2 aces to take an early lead. In the second set, the tension picked up with the Dutchman surviving 3 break points in the second game, but it was Griekspoor who then broke in the 11th game with a backhand, pushing the match into post-midnight territory. Now, Sinner ended the game for the fourth game of the third set, crushed over in pain and limping around the court. His condition did not improve in the fifth game and he hit the ball into the net multiple times, providing an easy break for his opponent before having to be helped to his chair at the end of the game and then calling it quits. Meanwhile, former champion of the Shanghai Masters Novak Djokovic said he had been hanging by the rope before battling through to the Shanghai Masters last 16 with a 4-6, 7-5, 6-3 win over qualifier Yannick Hoffmann on Sunday. The 38-year-old Serbian is looking to win a record-extending 5th title in Shanghai, but was given a mighty scare by the 150th ranked German. Djokovic fired 2 aces to start delighting the crowd, but soon ran into trouble as Hoffmann found his range. The German broke in the third game and held serve after that to clinch the first set. So neither player was able to take control of a grilling second set until a series of unforced errors from Hoffmann in the 12th game gave Djokovic the opening that he needed. Went on to win that game 4-6, 7-5 and 6-3. Well, that concludes your sports news this hour. For any sports stories you'd like to share with us, send us an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za or call us as well on +27 11714 4459. I'm back with more sports news in the next hour for Channel Africa Sport. I am Mosibu Di Makura.
Sports on Channel Africa. The African perspective. Madapiri bazoshitika. Madapiri bazoshitika.
Boma la dziko la South Sudan alengeza kuti wachiwiri kwa mtsogoleri wa dzikolo Riek Machar akuyenera kuyankha mlandu ofuna kulanda dziko wakupha komanso okonza ziwawa. Ndipo mtolankhani wathu nkummawa kwa Africa Fraser Oneni akuwunikirapo.
Muchikalata chomwe chinalengezedwa ndi nduna yoona zamalamulo komanso chilungamo ya dziko la South Sudan, chikalatachi chinalengeza kuti wachiwiri kwa president wa dzikolo Riek Machar apezeka ndi milandu yokupha, yofuna kuwukira boma komanso kulanda dziko ndi kuyambitsa ziwawa. Riek Machar akhala akusungidwa mokakamizidwa ku nyumba kwawo kuyambira mwezi wa Marichi chaka chino. Mwezi wa Marichiwu, asilikali omwe mbuyomu anali mgulu lomwe limagwira ntchito limodzi ndi Machar anamenyana ndi asilikali a boma a South Sudan Defense Forces SPDF mu chigawo cha White Nile dziko.
Zochitika pa nthawi ya 6 koloko kufikira 7 koloko madzulo. Lolemba mpaka lachisanu ndi Madapiri.
Let's say good morning for the first time on this Monday, the 6th of October, to Chandugo Ligege, who has our business news.
Business news on Channel Africa. The African perspective.
Thank you, Asanda. Good morning. The South African Broadcasting Corporation has denied reports the public broadcaster is planning retrenchments. The SABC says reports claiming there are plans for retrenchments are simply not accurate. The public broadcaster says in a statement that the SABC continues to operate with strong governance and accountability as confirmed by the Auditor General's unqualified audit opinion for the past financial year and the year before. SABC spokesperson Moni Ngubane.
Where operational challenges are identified, these are addressed internally through established systems and processes and do not warrant the kind of speculation currently circulating.
The South African Minister for Employment and Labour, Nomakosazana Meth, has refuted claims that her department did not process the payment of stipends for the education assistants and general education assistants at the Basic Education Department. She has blamed the Basic Education Department for not submitting supporting documents for the payments to be processed. The minister's spokesperson, Tobeka Makai, says the agreement between both departments is that basic education must upload attendance registers on the 15th of every month in order for payments to be processed.
However, for the month of September, the DBE did not submit complete supporting documents, which include the attendance registers on time. The UIF requires the attendance registers for verification in line with the multi-party funding agreement for the processing of invoices for the payment of 158,000 beneficiaries of 20,000 schools. On 29 September 2025, a meeting between DBE, DEL and UIF was held to discuss the matter, and the DBE agreed they would send these documents.
The Congress of South African Trade Unions says it will observe the International Day of Decent Work today with a National Day of Action. COSATU says the Day of Action will be centered on retrenchments, weak economic growth and the rising cost of living. The Federation says that it will also act on companies that are still not paying workers' pension fund deductions to the relevant. Soli Petwe is COSATU's General Secretary.
The financial sector conduct has released a report that last year with 7,200 companies that are not complying in terms of deducting the money of the pension fund of workers and paid to where it's supposed to the fund. This year it has now increased to 15,000 plus, and we are calling for those companies this year. We have identified those companies that are not complying with the Act. One by one, would be visiting them province by province, region by regions.
Also in the news, Qatar Energy has agreed with Shell to acquire a 27% participating interest in a block offshore Egypt from the oil and gas major. Qatar Energy has in recent years acquired stakes in oil and gas basins, including in Guyana, Lebanon, Namibia and South Africa as part of a strategy to expand its global presence. It recently also acquired several exploration blocks offshore Egypt. The agreement will still subject to Egypt's approval, stipulated that Shell will retain a 36% participating interest as operator of the North Cleopatra block. Chevron also holds a 27% participating interest, and Egyptian oil and gas firm Tara Petroleum Company holds 10%. Oil prices increased by 1.5% today after the Organization of the Petroleum Exporting Countries OPEC announced a more modest monthly increase in production than expected. Brent crude futures rose 91 cents to 65.44 a barrel. The U.S. West Texas Intermediate crude is up 89 cents. Yesterday, the Organization of the Petroleum Exporting Countries plus Russia said production will increase from November by 137,000 barrels per day, the same modest monthly increase as in October. Now let's shift our focus to financial indicators at this hour. $1 in Nigeria is 1,470 naira, and Botswana 13 pula 20. Kenya, the dollar is 128 shilling 49. Zambia 23 kwacha 78. BRICS countries, $1 in Brazil is at 5 real 33. In Russia 81 rubles 93. India 88 rupees 72. China 71.13. South Africa 17 rand 21 cents. $1 is 74 pence to the British pound and 85 to the euro. Commodities, gold is at $3,920, platinum at $1,622 per ounce. The price of Brent crude oil at $65.43 a barrel. For any business stories you'd like to share with us, please send us an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za, or you can call us on +27 11 714 4459. For Channel Africa Business, I am Chanduko Ligege.
Business News on Channel Africa. The African Perspective. G20 in Africa, exclusive to Channel Africa.
Our G20 fact for this Monday. Did you know that South Africa's participation in the G20 is guided by the country's 4 foreign policy pillars? These are the national interests, the African agenda, South-South cooperation, and multilateralism. South Africa officially assumed the presidency of the G20 on 1st December 2024, making it the first country on the African continent to lead the premier forum. And that's our G20 fact for this morning.
G20 in Africa, exclusive to Channel Africa, championing Africa through solidarity, equality, and sustainability.
Property is more than bricks and mortar. It's your pathway to security, growth, and freedom. Let Century 21 property professionals help you make smart moves in today's market. Our award-winning real estate agents combine world-class marketing with local expertise, helping you sell faster, buy smarter, and grow your investments. Visit century21.co.za and let's open the door to your next chapter.
Wake up to the essence of the continent. Rise and shine on Channel Africa.
This morning, we look ahead to the 23rd Nelson Mandela Annual Lecture, one of South Africa's most important platforms for dialogue on global issues. This year, the lecture will be delivered by human rights lawyer and UN Special Rapporteur Francesca Albanese under the theme Enhancing Peace and Global Cooperation. Rising conflicts, growing inequalities, and challenges to international cooperation make the message more urgent than ever. Joining us now is Dr. Mbongiseni Buthelezi, CEO of the Nelson Mandela Foundation, to discuss what this year's lecture aims to achieve and why Mandela's vision for peace and justice remains so relevant today. Dr. Buthelezi, good morning to you and thank you for making time.
Good morning to you, Asanda, and thank you for having me.
Our pleasure. Why was this year's theme Enhancing Peace and Global Cooperation chosen, and what message do you hope it sends?
The theme was chosen because we are living in a world that is facing growing conflict, in which we are very concerned about the direction in which the world is going. There's also, as we have seen, a breakdown of multilateralism, with certain powers in the world, especially the United States, not cooperating with others, as has been the case for the last 8 years, especially since the founding of the United Nations. And so we've chosen that theme, building on a speech that Nelson Mandela gave in Malawi in 2003, where he made it quite clear that it is a choice, it is a political choice, either to work with others to reduce conflicts, or not. And he urged the world for people and countries, powers to work together to reduce conflict and to create harmonious ways of living together. We are building on that in a moment when it is quite urgent that peace and cooperation be found in this moment in the world.
How does Mandela's vision for peace guide the foundation in choosing the kind of themes that are covered and speakers?
So most of our work is actually guided by the mandate that Nelson Mandela gave the foundation. And the mandate is to advance peace, democracy, and human rights in the world. It is based on our analysis of where the world is and what is most urgently needed in terms of dialogue, in terms of seeding new ideas, in terms of shifting hearts and minds in the world. And that is how we've chosen this year's theme. It goes on previous year's themes. This is the 23rd lecture that is being hosted since Nelson Mandela himself inaugurated the first one. And today the world is even more urgently in need of dialogue and in need of people finding one another and hearts and minds shifting so that we can work towards peace in the world. And that is what has guided our decision for this year's annual lecture.
Talk to us about the decision to have Francesca Albanese deliver this year's lecture.
Francesca Albanese is a world-respected human rights lawyer who has worked across the United Nations system on issues of human rights, as well as on matters to do with refugees. She is also the UN Special Rapporteur on Palestine at the moment. And that is one of the most urgent and pressing conflicts of our time that I think is going to define the next era of multilateralism in the world. It is then, I think, for us quite apt that that's the person who this year we've invited to South Africa to talk about these pressing matters in the world. The issues that we are seeing don't only affect Palestine. There are issues that affect other places in the world. We're seeing conflicts in Sudan, for example. We're seeing the conflict in Ukraine. And the issues that she is going to speak about finding peace globally, not just in a particular conflict, even though her focus will be on Palestine, and it is an urgent and pressing conflict that we need to bring to an end in the world. But it is that broad scope of talking about conflict, talking about multilateralism, talking about human rights issues that I think we need to recommit to in the world going forward. That's why we've invited Francesca Albanese to give this year's lecture.
Great. How does the foundation ensure the lecture leads to real world impact and it doesn't end at just dialogue level?
So I think on one hand, dialogue is important. The way that we work towards solutions in the world is through dialoguing. And one of the things that Nelson Mandela himself did, and did very successfully after he stepped down as president, was to convene dialogues. He always said that if you bring people together that agree, it's not a dialogue, it's a chat. But what you need to do is to bring people together who disagree on issues and keep them in a conversation until a constructive way forward is found. And so dialogue, I think, is important on one hand for those, for that reason. But beyond dialogue, what we need to do, of course, is to see action. And dialogue leads sometimes to collective action. What we are seeing in the matter of Palestine, but also in the matters of other conflicts in the world, is that there is a global movement for peace. And that global movement for peace is gaining momentum with things like the recognition of the Palestinian state by various member states of the United Nations that happened at the UN General Assembly this year. There's also a growing momentum in terms of the protests that we're seeing for peace happening in different parts of the world. And that, in part, is something that is encouraged and driven by dialogue. So dialogue, I think, is critical, but that dialogue needs to lead to action. It needs to lead to pressure being put on states. It needs to lead to efforts like the Hague Group, where South Africa has come together with other countries, including Colombia, to push for other states to get involved in trying to stop the conflicts that are happening more urgently than we've seen so far. And it is that kind of momentum that we need to sustain through efforts like the the Nelson Mandela Annual Lecture and related events that happen. There will be other engagements that happen around the annual lecture in Johannesburg as well as in Cape Town.
What do you believe, and I'm sure there's a lot of these lessons that we can extract from Mandela's approach to dealing with conflict, but what do you believe are the top lessons that we can take from his approach and those that are going to be most relevant when it comes to today's conflicts?
The important thing, I think, is to find sufficient consensus and to create spaces that are safe enough for difficult conversations to be had. There's never entirely a safe space, but we can create spaces that are safe enough for the hard conversations that need to be had, to be able to shift hearts and minds, to bring together people from across the political spectrum into dialogue, but also to bring together people from across religious persuasions. And so some of the engagements that are going to happen around this lecture are going to include Ms. Albanese meeting with Jewish leaders, meeting with Christian leaders, meeting with Muslim leaders, but also meeting with other groups that have been quite active or activist in calling for peace in Palestine. And I think that's the important thing, is to create those spaces that are safe enough where people who might disagree with one another can find spaces to be in dialogue with one another, and can find spaces to be in dialogue with people that they disagree with. So that's the critical thing about the role of dialogue and the way in which Nelson Mandela taught us how to conduct dialogue, and we continue the work that he started by trying to create those safe enough spaces for voices that disagree to be able to find one another.
Finally, where and when will this 23rd Nelson Mandela Annual Lecture take place? Who can be a part of it as well?
The lecture will take place at Wits University at the Linda Auditorium on the 25th of October. And then 2 days later, on the 27th of October, Albanese will also speak at the University of Cape Town. There will be later this week, tickets will be available. So through our website, nelsonmandela.org, you can be directed to where you can book tickets if you want to attend the lecture in person. But there will also be a live stream, because the venue where the lectures will take place, both in Johannesburg and in Cape Town, have quite limited capacity. And we've got overwhelming interest in these lectures. So there'll also be simultaneously a live stream where the details will be available on our website, nelsonmandela.org, for both the Wits University in Johannesburg lecture on the 25th of October, as well as on the 27th of October at the University of Cape Town. Those live streams anybody can access from anywhere in the world and follow the lecture.
Dr. Buthelezi, we thank you again for your time, and we appreciate you telling us about this and reminding us about the spirit and legacy of our former president in South Africa, Nelson Mandela.
Thank you very much for having us.
Dr. Mbongiseni Buthelezi is CEO of the Nelson Mandela Foundation, sharing insights ahead of the 23rd Nelson Mandela Annual Lecture.
Darubini ya Afrika na I am Henry Shakif.
Vita kule imezungumzwa pia DRC, lakini Somalia, Sudani Kusini, kumekuwa kuna vita za hapa na pale. Katika mkutano huu, unadhani hili lingekuwa ni kipaumbele?
Ni kipaumbele kikubwa, kama unavyomwona waziri wa sheria wa zamani Yvonne kutoka Namibia alivyozungumza, ni kwamba kwanza inasikitisha watu tunapojikuta kwamba mataifa nje ndio yanashiriki kutupatanisha. Hii inaonyesha hatuaminiani, na pia tumekubali kutumiwa, kwa sababu hawa wanatupatanisha wana ajenda zao, wana kitu wananufaika.
Na kama vile wewe ambavyo umezungumza, umekuja hapa kama mwakilishi, na leo ndo mkutano huu na siku tatu, na leo ndo siku ya kwanza, pengine tutegemee nini kupitia mkutano huu?
Kitu kikubwa ambacho nataka kujifunza hapa ni namna gani tutarudi nyumbani na kuweka ukaribu, ile bondi kati yetu sisi na wale wanaotuwakilisha. Kusiwe na ukuta, kusiwe na kutoaminiana, na pia wale wanapopewa madaraka wasijisi wamekuwa wakubwa zaidi, kwa sababu wale ni watumishi.
Darubini ya Afrika kila Jumatatu hadi Ijumaa kuanzia saa 11 kamili hadi saa 12 kamili jioni majira ya Afrika ya Kati.
Right, we enter now the second hour of Rise and Shine. If you've just joined us, thank you so much for choosing Channel Africa. And we are broadcasting live from Johannesburg in South Africa. My name is Asanda Beda, and we'll be getting into our programming in just a bit. You can connect with us on SABC Plus, the app, on our mobile phones. Also at Channel Africa 1. That's our handle, where we are live streaming on YouTube, as well as www.channelafrica.co.za. Let's say good morning to Onele Nzinzi, who's got our news update, and then following her is Musibudi Makura to give us a snippet of what's happening in the world of sports.
SABC News. The African Perspective.
Thank you, Asanda. The International Committee of the Red Cross says the situation in Sudan's Al-Fashir has reached catastrophic levels, with over 260,000 people trapped, surviving on a single meal a day, and medical teams working under fire. Local medical teams are under fire trying to work with very limited resources and trying to save lives whilst protecting their own. The Sudanese army says its rivals, the paramilitary rapid support forces, have continued to carry out drone attacks on the southern cities. The country is also facing its worst cholera outbreak in years, with more than 100,000 suspected cases and over 2,500 deaths reported across all 18 states. The ICRC has called on all sides to respect international humanitarian law and for urgent action to prevent further suffering. Thousands of people in Madagascar took to the streets in different parts of the country even over the weekend, which is the largest wave of protests the Indian Ocean island nation has witnessed in more than 15 years. At least 22 people have reportedly been killed and more than 100 injured in the unrest. The BBC's Semi Awami.
Unlike the anti-government protests, police in the capital have been seen escorting pro-government protesters as they march through the streets, according to a local journalist. The journalist says that pro-government activists have been visiting the suburbs of the capital to reinforce yesterday's message from the president's speech that the Gen Z protests have been infiltrated by politicians who want to take advantage of the demonstrations to overthrow the government. Yesterday, Madagascar president addressed the public via his Facebook page and warned the nation about what he described as dangerous elements seeking to destabilize the country.
Tanzania has dismissed some of the country's soldiers following a video that has gone viral on social media. The video shows members of the military criticizing the government. The BBC's Andrew Ochieng.
They are afraid of being too hopeful, some of them have said, because they have been disappointed so many times before. And many of them are very angry with Benjamin Netanyahu because they...
We do apologize for playing that sound. The Madlanga Commission of Inquiry will only resume its public hearing in South Africa, Pretoria, next week. The commission took a break last week after crime intelligence head Dumisani Kumalo fell ill shortly after testifying. Meanwhile, the KwaZulu-Natal Police Commissioner Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi will tomorrow appear before Parliament's ad hoc committee set up to investigate allegations of threats to national security. Mkhwanazi made the allegations, which include corruption, political interference and criminal infiltration of the justice system. Parliament has appointed Advocate Norman Arendse as its evidence leader. He says Mkhwanazi will be the first senior police official to appear before the committee.
It's not the same as the statement that was before the Madlanga Commission. In fact, it is referenced, the Madlanga Commission statement. In fact, we've tried to avoid a repetition, or there are a number of material differences. There is some new matter, some not evidence yet because he hasn't been called yet, but new matter that's also been referred to in the statements.
Lastly, the U.S. President Donald Trump has warned of more massive bloodshed in Gaza if those involved in efforts to end the war do not move fast. His comments on social media come ahead of indirect talks between Hamas and Israel due to begin in Egypt today. Earlier, the U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio urged Israel to stop bombing Gaza. He says hostages cannot be released in the middle of strikes.
I would like the hostages to have been released yesterday. Now, we need to work through the logistics of how that's going to happen. I mean, and again, that sounds simplistic, but it's not just about, you got to make sure that there's no fighting going on. You have to make sure the Red Cross can get there, what time they're going to be there, where they're going to be. All of that has to be worked through, and that's not easy in the middle of an active war zone. That has to be de-escalated.
For any news stories you'd like to share with us, please send us an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za or call us at +27 11 714 4459. Channel Africa News, I'm Onele Tsinzi.
SABC News. The African Perspective.
And coming up in your sports news, South Africa qualify for the last round of 16 at the ongoing FIFA Under-20 World Cup, while Mercedes' George Russell wins the Singapore Grand Prix. Details of these and other stories coming up at 7:30.
New day, new stories. Start your morning right with Rise and Shine on Channel Africa. Your morning companion with the stories that matter. This is Rise and Shine on Channel Africa. Africa in Business on Channel Africa.
The United States was very vocal at the beginning of South Africa's G20 presidency, and this is largely due to strained relations with South Africa at the time, that they were not really keen on participating. Where do they stand right now?
The US is planning to take over the presidency of the G20 next year, and our understanding from them is that they intend to continue to do so, and therefore it is quite difficult then to be in a situation where you are not attending deputies' meetings or discussions during our presidency and then to take over the presidency next year. From a finance track perspective, there has been engagement. We've been working on a communique last week and this week here in Zimbabwe. What's important about that is that it's a consensus document. And so all the members in the room have to agree to the language that is used there. And our US colleagues have been part of those discussions and negotiations.
Bringing the African markets into your home. Channel Africa, the African perspective. Download the SABC app and take Channel Africa with you everywhere you go.
Malawians on Saturday swore in Peter Mutharika as president following his 16 September election victory. The 85-year-old, who previously led the country from 2014 to 2020, made a remarkable political comeback. At his inauguration in Blantyre, Mutharika thanked religious leaders and said Malawians had voted against corruption, theft and state-sponsored abuses. Channel Africa's George Mango reports from Blantyre in Malawi.
Professor Arthur Peter Mutharika.
This characterized the swearing-in event for Peter Mutharika as his new 5-year term will run until 2030. Initially, Mutharika's victory over Lazarus Chakwera returned him to power of a country which faces economic challenges. Mutharika's earlier presidency ended after the 2019 poll was declared invalid by the courts due to irregularities. In his address, Mutharika said he would be looking to neighbors and friends in Zambia, Tanzania, Mozambique, Zimbabwe, Botswana, South Africa, and the entire SADC region up to Kenya and beyond as he seeks to revamp the economy. He added that his immediate actions are going to do with dealing with the economic crisis, ensuring that Malawians have food, sanitizing the cost of living, and ensuring that forex is available, apart from dealing with fuel shortages.
If you want a different Malawi, if you want different results, then let us begin to think differently. And think differently we will do. All my friends in the DPP and anyone in the back office, remember this: Malawi belongs to all Malawians. This country does not belong to any person, any tribe, or any political party. Malawi does not belong to the DPP either. Malawi belongs to all of us. Let us be in government to serve the people, not to save our stomachs or to save our friends and families.
Top officials from various regional economic blocs in Africa and beyond attended the event, which also saw Jenny Ansah taking oath as Malawi's vice president. Ansah is a renowned lawyer and once headed the Malawi Electoral Commission.
Affection or ill will, so help me God. So help me God.
The new Malawi leader warned civil servants against looting, saying he would deal with them once caught. According to Mutharika, Malawi's crisis is a man-made crisis, adding that the situation is not a natural tragedy beyond human capacity.
Government is not a fist. Government is not a political party. Government is not a nightclub. Being in government is about serving the people. To change our situation, to create jobs, and to help everyone prosper in their businesses, farming, or education. It is that fishing spirit, it is that mediate spirit that is destroying this country. And from today onwards, the practice of mediate is gone. I find you looting the government, whether you are a politician or a civil servant or a businessman, you are done. The honeymoon of looting is over. You are now dealing with a different president. And you are looking at a different president. I will not allow anyone to destroy this country under my watch, and I mean anyone.
Mutharika also thanked the US and the UK governments, including the European Community, for what he said, standing up against corruption, theft of public resources, and reckless looting of Malawi's national treasury.
Ill will, affection or ill will. So help me God. So help me God.
George Mhango, Channel Africa News, Blantyre.
South Africa's Minister of Cooperative Governance and Traditional Affairs, Dr. Velenkosini Hlabisa, has called for renewed determination, ethical leadership and collective action to transform the country's municipalities into capable and accountable institutions. Speaking at the closing of the 2026 local government Indaba on Friday, Hlabisa commended delegates for their honesty, innovation and commitment during 2 days of robust discussions on the state of local governance. Channel Africa's reporter Michael Mbewe filed this report.
This pivotal gathering brought together over 1,000 delegates nationally from across government, traditional leadership, business academia, civil society and organized labor, united by a shared commitment to revitalize municipalities and restore public confidence in local governance. In his closing remarks, COCTA Minister Velenkosini Hlabisa was impressed by contributions made by delegates.
We are inspired by the dedication and insight demonstrated by all our participants, our councillors, our municipal managers, our traditional leaders, policy experts, and the civil society representatives, and all the MECs, ministers and deputy ministers who have brought their expertise and passion to the table. Your contributions have underscored the critical role of collaboration, transparency, and professionalism in ensuring that our local government institutions serve the citizens effectively and equitably.
Hlabisa reflected on the 2 days of robust interrogation of current realities of municipalities and further asserted that the proposals emerging from the Indaba will reinforce key reforms of some bills as part of the legislative framework that must be finalized ahead of the next local government elections.
Over these past 2 days, we have interrogated the current realities of our municipalities, governance, instability, administrative capacity gaps, financial constraints, spatial inequalities, and service delivery challenges. But alongside these challenges, we have also witnessed the wealth of innovation, commitment, and the potential that exists within our sector. The recommendations of this Indaba will reinforce the outcomes of the coalition's bill, the traditional and Cohen-San leadership bill, the white paper on local government review, and other legislative pieces that must be finalized before the next local government elections.
Tlhabisa added that the proposals underscored the importance of strategic reforms, resilient systems, and inclusive governance, highlighting the need to depoliticize administration, enhance accountability, professionalize leadership, and strengthen citizen participation as essential measures to build capable municipalities that drive development and rebuild public confidence.
The proposals and solutions presented have reaffirmed that with strategic reforms, robust systems, and inclusive governance, our municipalities can become engines of development, economic growth, and service delivery. We have particularly focused on the importance of depoliticizing administration, strengthening accountability mechanisms, professionalizing leadership, and ensuring effective citizen partnership. These are not abstract ideals, but practical imperatives that will determine whether our local governments can deliver services efficiently, manage public resources responsibly, and foster trust among communities.
A highlight of the Indaba was the Local Government Good Governance Awards, which celebrated municipalities that exemplify best practices in governance and financial stewardship. One of the recipients of the award was King Ceshwayo District Municipality in KwaZulu-Natal under the leadership of Mayor Skhumbuzo Dlamini.
I feel very much happy for the award that the President of the IFP and the Minister of COGTA nationally, Mr. Tlhabisa, has also given me this award, which is the award that I've been achieving for the 3 consecutive years from King Ceshwayo, and I've also received one from the COGTA KZN. So I'm very much happy, and then I will also show it to my colleagues as well as to my people who are working for these people, especially the MM and the CFO of the King Ceshwayo municipality.
Dlamini explained how his municipality takes care of public funds and that contractors are monitored.
In fact, King Ceshwayo is very, very particular in handling people's money that is given to King Ceshwayo to provide them with needs that they need. So we make it a point that in each and every month we look at our fiscals and see if everything is going okay, and we see that the money is not being squandered by anyone, and the contractors that are working for us are doing the job for the people.
On the Indaba, Dlamini says it was worth a while.
Well, I think this was a very, very fruitful gathering that we discuss in details how can we make municipalities viable and serve the people. And look at these very specific things that need to be done by each municipality. So each municipality must work, as the Minister of COGTA has said it in his way of motivating us to work for the people in the municipality.
Michael Mbewe, Channel Africa News, Johannesburg.
Mix Vibration sur Channel Africa.
Qu'est-ce qui vous a amené à dire ça? Est-ce que vous avez observé un certain nombre d'événements dans la vie? Est-ce que c'était par rapport à une expérience? Est-ce que vous avez rencontré des choses qui vous ont dit il faut de la patience, comme ça les choses vont venir au bon moment et le bon Dieu pourra peut-être me visiter?
Oui, c'était justement un conseil que le Seigneur m'avait inspiré pour donner à son peuple, parce qu'il y a la plupart des gens, pendant que Dieu bénit les autres, ils pensent que Dieu les a oubliés, et pendant que Dieu ouvre pour les autres, ils pensent que peut-être Dieu n'a pas pu écouter leurs prières. Alors, ce n'est pas le cas. Alors, Dieu bénit tout un chacun de nous avec son temps. Donc, le temps de Dieu est toujours le meilleur dans la vie de tout un chacun de nous.
Mix Vibration, tous les dimanches de 18h à 19h, temps universel.
A fresh morning, a fresh perspective. Stay tuned to Rise and Shine on Channel Africa.
The International Committee of the Red Cross says the situation in Sudan's Al-Fasher has reached catastrophic levels, with over 260,000 people trapped, surviving on a single meal a day, and medical teams working under fire. The ICRC has called on all sides to respect international humanitarian law and for urgent action to prevent further suffering. To tell us more, we're joined now by Matteo Jaramillo Ortega, the ICRC's regional spokesperson for Africa. Matteo, thank you for joining us. How are you this morning?
Good morning. I'm fine. Thank you very much.
Let's start with Al-Fasher. The ICRC describes the situation there as nothing short of catastrophic. What exactly is happening on the ground right now?
Okay, thanks again for having the time to talking with me. The situation in Al Fashir, as you just mentioned, and that's why we put the statement last week, it is catastrophic right now. We have seen more than 500 days where men, women, children are trapped. They don't have access to drinkable water. They don't have access to food. They don't have access to the basic needs. Many of our colleagues that are now based in Port Sudan, for instance, have families, have relatives in Al Fashir, and we were talking with them last week, and they were telling us, I can give you a small example, for instance, now that you were mentioning the access to food. Many of them, they're surviving with just one meal per day. They're taking these meals for a few charitable kitchens that serves only one type of dish. Many of them are going to be plant-based, for instance. And this is, in other reasons, because to afford 1 kilogram of flour, it's around $20. So the situation for them, it's reaching a point where the humanity is not there anymore.
So how is the ICRC managing to deliver any humanitarian assistance under such dangerous conditions? We've heard more than 260,000 people are trapped and eating just one meal a day, as you say.
As the International Committee of the Red Cross, we continue to financially support medical team that is in Al Fashir. There are doctors, surgeons who are still performing life-saving surgeries. We have the testimony. We talked a couple of last week also with one of the surgeons that we support, who's telling us that they are not having, for instance, anesthesia to operate properly, that they're themselves under life-threatening conditions. The health structures themselves have been shelled, and this is the type of support that we're managing to do for the moment. We don't have access right now to Al Fashir. This is something that we have called upon. This is one of the main appeals that we're doing right now to the parties to the conflict, is not only for the ICRC, but also for the ICRC, for humanitarian actors, to reach Al Fashir, to reach the people who are in need right now.
What are doctors and nurses up against in hospitals there, and what kind of support do they most urgently need?
They need the borders to be open. They need the main things that they use to operate. I was mentioning the testimony, the very hard testimony of one of the surgeons that we support. He was telling us, for instance, that, just to give you an example, because I think it created the image that we need here, is in order for them to operate, in many cases, they are using the lights of their phones, because there is no electricity in many of the places where they are operating right now. They don't have the blood needed. They don't have anesthesia. They don't have the most basic painkillers in order for them to operate correctly. These people or the ones who have been wounded by shellings, by shootings. And this is creating also a situation where diseases like cholera, for instance, are spreading all around Sudan, because this is not only a situation in Al Fashir. It's also in the Kordofans, it's also in Khartoum, it's in Sudan wider, if you want. But to go back to the question that you posed to me, is they need to be able to perform their jobs, and for this they need the basic needs. They need the adequate conditions to operate.
As you speak about how widespread the displacement crisis is, the head of the ICR delegation in Sudan, Daniel O'Malley, also mentioned the Kordofan regions where civilians are constantly being displaced by shifting front lines. What can you tell us about that region?
Sudan is a country of more or less 50 million people, and we're talking about 12 million who have been displaced. This is the highest record number ever recorded. The situation in the Kordofans, for instance, is extremely difficult. It is dire. They are not in siege like in Al Fashir. However, the needs are there, because what we're seeing is attacks against critical infrastructure, sources of water, sources of electricity. And in these conditions, the population who are being obliged to flee, to leave their homes, are facing situations where they cannot find food or water or just the minimum conditions to live. So in the Kordofans also, what we're seeing is that the fighting, the escalation of hostilities between the parties to the conflict is affecting mainly the civilians and mainly those who are not longer combating or those who don't take any part in the conflict.
Mateo, thank you so much for your time. We appreciate it and for updating us on this situation.
Thank you very much.
Mateo Jaramillo Ortega, Regional Spokesperson for Africa at the International Committee of the Red Cross, speaking to us about the worsening humanitarian crisis in Sudan.
Get Channel Africa on DSTV Audio Bouquet. Channel 802.
As the B Lab Africa Summit wrapped up in Johannesburg on Friday, one of the key discussions centered on the role of artificial intelligence is advancing sustainability across the continent. Experts highlighted both the opportunities and challenges AI presents for businesses, farmers, and communities. Our reporter Lebogang Mabange has more.
Artificial intelligence is transforming how decisions are made, particularly in sectors linked to sustainability. Luke Heyman, co-founder and executive director of Sustainable Kenya, highlighted the potential for AI to help businesses and farmers use their data more effectively.
And I think there's some really interesting points, particularly around this dichotomy of the opportunities, but also the risks. And I think the opportunities that we see are really around the ability for businesses, farmers, different value chains to own their own data, to spend less time collecting, processing, analyzing data, and therefore spending more time using that data to make decisions. So I think that's where some of the opportunities lie.
While AI offers new ways to work smarter, Heyman also warned about its impact on jobs, especially for young people entering the workforce.
Some of the risks are particularly around employment. So we've been speaking around the number of people in sub-Saharan Africa who are joining the job market every year. So we have around 12 million people, and only 2 million are finding formal employment. And then that's the situation right now. Whereas we're seeing that AI is sort of taking up the space of entry-level jobs. The CEO of Anthropic expects around half of white-collar entry-level jobs to disappear over the next 5 years. So that presents a real risk for the youth bulge or the youth dividend in sub-Saharan Africa.
Another challenge is scaling sustainability projects in Africa, where expertise is often limited and value chains fragmented. Heyman explained how AI could overcome these barriers.
The challenges to scaling sustainability projects in Africa is, until now, it's relied on individual expertise, so consultants and sustainability experts. And there's a limit to how many businesses an expert can engage with. And when we see value chains in Africa, they're often quite fragmented. For example, if you look at smallholder farmers in Kenya, the average size, it's often less than 1 acre that a farmer is farming. And so there's a real hard limit to how many farmers an individual can support. Whereas AI and technology presents an opportunity there to do that at scale in a sort of conversational way rather than an assessment way.
Looking ahead, Heyman sees the greatest opportunity for AI in combining global sustainability frameworks with local and indigenous practices, helping communities access markets and grow sustainably.
The biggest opportunities for AI in sustainability in Kenya is translating these many complex frameworks at a global level, and also translating local practice, and particularly traditional and indigenous practice that's often sustainable, and making the two speak together and doing that at scale. I think that presents an enormous opportunity to unlock capital, to unlock access to markets, and to support businesses and farmers to grow.
For Africa, the conversation makes it clear AI is more than just a technology. It's a tool that could reshape sustainability, empower communities, and help the continent tackle some of its most pressing challenges. Reporting for Channel Africa, I am Lebogang Mabange in Johannesburg, South Africa.
7:30 Central African time it is. Let's get our news headlines now. Here's Onele Nzinzi.
SABC News. Headlines. The African Perspective.
Thank you, Asanda. The International Committee of the Red Cross says the situation in Sudan's Al-Fashir has reached catastrophic levels, with over 260,000 people trapped, surviving on a single meal a day, and a medical team working under fire. The late South African ambassador to France, Natim Tetwa's brother-in-law, Khulekani Buthelezi, believes the cooperation between the two countries' law enforcement officials will provide answers to the brief family is seeking. Tetwa had died last week at the age of 58 after falling from the 22nd floor of a hotel in France. And US President Donald Trump has warned of more massive bloodshed in Gaza if those involved in efforts to end the war do not move fast. His comments on social media come ahead of indirect talks between Hamas and Israel due to begin in Egypt today. Channel Africa News, I am Onele Tsinzi.
SABC News. Headlines. The African Perspective.
Now let's check in with the world of sports as we say good morning to Musibudi Makura. She's got our news for sports.
Sports on Channel Africa. The African Perspective.
Thank you so much, Asanda. Indeed, I've got your sporting update this hour. We'll start with some good news. African champions at South Africa have advanced to the knockout stages of the 2025 FIFA Under-20 World Cup with a 2-1 defeat of the USA in their deciding Group E match played last night. So USA scored twice. It was the opener through Noah Cobb and then the other an own goal from Joshua Winder, while Homolemo Kekana netted the winner to see South Africa finish second in the group, tied on 6 points with the USA in first spot and France behind them from 3 matches played. So let's hear from Amajita head coach Raymond Mdaka, who was quite pleased with his Chargers' performance in that match.
Let me congratulate the boys. I think, honestly, the boys did a very good job. They showed character. They showed that they are the African champions. It was not an easy game. Playing the USA, who has already won 2 games with a number of goals. So it looks like it was a mountain to climb. But then...
All right, so a massive congratulations there to Amajita making it into the last round of 16 of the FIFA Under-20 World Cup. They'll get to play Colombia on Thursday for a place in the quarterfinals of the global tournament. Well, we'll stay with football news. Egyptian giants Pyramids FC underline their title credentials with a dominant 3-0 win over Rwanda's APR in Cairo, Egypt on Sunday, completing a 5-0 aggregate triumph to book their place in the second preliminary round of the Total Energies CAF Champions League. Goals from Mustafa Abdel Raouf Zico, Ahmed Atif Kwatam as well as Mohamed Hamdi sealed a comfortable night for the reigning African champions, who were really troubled by the visitors at the Air Defence Stadium. So having already won 2-0 in Kigali thanks to a brace from Congolese striker Fiston Mayeda, title holders Pyramids controlled that game, or rather should I say controlled the return leg from the outset. Now the victory also sets up a second preliminary round clash against Ethiopian Insurance as Pyramids continue their campaign to defend the historic CAF Champions League crown that they first won last year in their first appearance in a CAF competition. On to some Formula One news now. Mercedes' George Russell stole the spotlight from his title contenders with a stunning pole position at the Singapore Grand Prix yesterday. So Russell's first pole since the Canadian Grand Prix in June, which he won, was achieved by 0.182 seconds from Red Bull's Max Verstappen. McLaren's championship leader Oscar Piastri took third place with his title rival as well as teammate Lando Norris behind in fifth behind Mercedes' Kimi Antonelli. Ferrari's Lewis Hamilton as well as Charles Leclerc took 6th and 7th place respectively. It was Mercedes' first pole in Singapore since Hamilton set his famous lap back in 2018 and came as a surprise as Russell gate crashed Norris as well as Piastri's fight. And this is what he had to say, George Russell, after that win in Singapore.
Yeah, it feels amazing, especially after what happened a couple of years ago That was a bit of a missed opportunity, but we more than made up for it today. Just so grateful for the team. They did an amazing job this whole weekend. We don't really know where this performance came from, but really, really happy.
On to golf news now. Robert McIntyre won his fourth DP World Tour title at the Alfred Dunhill Links Championship, just 1 week on from helping Team Europe defend the Ryder Cup title. So McIntyre shot a third straight 6 under 66, at this time on the All course at St Andrews, having also done at the Quenesu as well as the King's Barnes to complete a full 4-stroke victory on his home at the home of golf. Now the third round was postponed on Saturday because of a stormy weather, making the event a Pro-Am played over 3 of Scotland's top links courses, a 54-hole tournament. So McIntyre earned 1.5 points for the Europeans last week in their win in the Ryder Cup at Bethpage Black, where he encountered, of course, much more hostility, and the conditions there were not good than he did back home this past weekend. And finally, in tennis news, Novak Djokovic said he had been hanging by a rope before battling through the Shanghai Masters last 16 with a 4-7, 7-5, 6-3 win over qualifier Yannick Hoffmann on Sunday. Now, the 38-year-old Serbian is looking to win a record-extending 5th title in Shanghai, but was given a mighty scare by the 150th ranked German. Djokovic fired 2 aces to start that match, delighting the crowd, but soon ran into trouble as Hoffmann found his range. The German broke in the third game and held serve after that to clinch the first set. Now, neither player was able to take control of a grilling second set until a series of unforced errors from Hoffmann in the 12th game gave Novak Djokovic the opening he needed. He went on to win that game in 3 sets, 4-6, 7-5 and 6-3. Well, that's a wrap from the sports desk on the second hour of Africa Rise and Shine. For any sports stories you'd like to share with us, remember to send us an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za or call us on +27 11714 4459. I'm back with a final sports update on the show in the next hour. For Channel Africa Sport, I am Musibudi Makure.
Sports on Channel Africa. The African Perspective. Africa. It's time to plug into the heartbeat of the continent. Tune in to Channel Africa, your go-to radio station that broadcasts in 5 different languages.
L'Afrique du Sud célèbre la journée nationale du
Kabla hujaitwa kwa jina la Double K
or more of our forests have been destroyed. Partido Africano da Independência da Guiné.
See, Channel Africa represents every corner of this amazing land. From Lagos to Cape Town, Nairobi to Dakar, we've got you covered with the freshest news, music, and cultures. So, turn up the volume, feel the rhythm. Enjoy the conversation. Channel Africa, the African Perspective.
Time to catch up with the world of business now as we say good morning to Chandugo Ligege.
Business news on Channel Africa, the African Perspective.
Thank you, Asanda. Good morning. The South African Broadcasting Corporation has denied reports the public broadcaster is planning retrenchments. The SABC says reports claiming there are plans for retrenchments are simply not accurate. The public broadcaster says in a statement that the SABC continues to operate with strong governance and accountability as confirmed by the Auditor General's unqualified audit opinion for the past financial year and the year before. SABC spokesperson Moni Ngubane.
Where operational challenges are identified, these are addressed internally through established systems and processes and do not warrant the kind of speculation currently circulating.
The South African Minister of Employment and Labour, Nomakosazana Meth, has refuted claims that her department did not process the payment of stipends for the education assistants and general education assistants at the Basic Education Department. She has blamed the Basic Education Department for not submitting supporting documents for the payments to be processed. The minister spokesperson Tobeka Makai says the agreement between both departments is that basic education must upload attendance registers on the 15th of every month in order for payments to be processed.
However, for the month of September, the DBE did not submit complete supporting documents, which include the attendance registers on time. The UIF requires the attendance registers for verification in line with the multi-party funding agreement for the processing of invoices for the payment of 158,000 beneficiaries of 20,000 schools. On 29 September 2025, a meeting between DBE, DAL and UIF was held to discuss the matter, and the DBE agreed they would send these documents.
The Congress of South African Trade Unions says it will observe the International Day for Decent Work today with a National Day of Action. COSATU says the Day of Action will be centered on retrenchments, weak economic growth and the rising cost of living. The Federation says that it will also act on companies that are still not paying workers' pension funds. Solipetwe is COSATU General Secretary.
The financial sector conduct has released a report that last year with 707,200 companies that are not complying in terms of deducting the money of the pension fund of workers and paid to where it's supposed to the fund. This year it has now increased to 15,000 plus, and we are calling for those companies this year. We have identified those companies that are not complying with the act. One by one would be visiting them province by province, region by regions.
Qatar Energy has agreed with Shell to acquire a 27% participating interest in a block offshore Egypt from the oil and gas major. Qatar Energy has in recent years acquired stakes in oil and gas basins including in Guyana, Lebanon, Namibia and South Africa as part of a strategy to expand its global presence. It recently also acquired several exploration blocks offshore Egypt. The agreement, still subject to Egypt's approval, stipulated that Shell will retain a 36% participating interest as operator of the North Cleopatra block. Chevron also holds a 27% participating interest, and Egyptian oil and gas firm Tara Petroleum Company holds 10%. Japanese stocks have hit a record high after the country's ruling Liberal Democratic Party, LDP, named Sanae Takaichi as its new leader, positioning the pro-business politician to be Japan's next prime minister. The benchmark Nikkei 225 index is up by 4.5% in Tokyo after rising above 47,000 for the first time. Takaichi, who has held senior government roles including Minister for Economic Security and Internal Affairs, is known for her support of higher government spending and lower borrowing costs. Investors welcomed the announcement of her victory in the LDP leadership race, with shares rising in real estate, technology and heavy industry companies. Let's have a look at financial indicators. $1 in Nigeria is trading at 1,470 naira. Botswana 13 pula 20. Kenya the dollar is 128 shilling 49. Zambia 23 kwacha 78. BRICS countries, $1 in Brazil is at 5 real 33. In Russia 81 rubles 93. India 88 rupees 72. China 71.13. South Africa 17 rand 21 cents. $1 is 74 pence to the British pound, 85 to the euro. Commodities: gold is at $3,929, platinum at $1,625 per ounce. The price of Brent crude oil $65.50 a barrel. That's all for now. For any business stories you'd like to share with us, please send us an email, newsroom@channelafrica.co.za, or you can call us on +27 11 714 4459. For Channel Africa Business, I am Chandruk Ligege.
Business News on Channel Africa. The African Perspective.
Parlez-vous couramment le français? Êtes-vous passionné par la radio? Et êtes-vous qualifié pour travailler en Afrique du Sud? Envoyez-nous votre CV et votre 3 minutes démo en MP3 à @channelafrica.co.za pour avoir une chance de rejoindre la famille Channel Africa. Si vous n'avez pas de réponse après 14 jours, cela signifie que vous n'avez pas été retenu. Channel Africa, la perspective africaine.
Bringing you the energy, news, and good vibes to kickstart your day. This is Rise and Shine on Channel Africa.
An African Union Commission or AUC envoy has voiced concern over the continent's low fertilizer use, warning it is worsening food insecurity. During a 2-day visit to Zimbabwe, Vilakati Malidane held talks with agricultural officials on the AUC's fertilizer plant project in Harare. Only 10 African countries currently apply fertilizer at the recommended rate of 50 kilograms per hectare, a shortfall contributing to an annual food import bill of around $100 billion. John Kasim reports from Harare, Zimbabwe.
The African Union Commissioner for Agriculture, Mr. Vilakati Moses Malidane, has bemoaned the low fertilizer usage on the continent as efforts are being put in place to improve the trend and reduce food imports. Vilakati was in Zimbabwe from Friday on a 2-day work visit, and he took the time to tour an African Center for Fertilizer Development in Harare. The second plant is in Malawi, but despite their existence, fertilizer has been very expensive, making it one of the key expenses in the agro-rural development agenda. To maximize fertilizer usage, farmers are expected to use at least 50 kgs of fertilizer per hectare against 100 to 120 in Europe. The low fertilizer usage has led to the high food import bill of $100 billion per year. However, the visit by Vilakati may see the African Union Commission projects such as the one in Harare and Malawi being handed over to host nations or merged with other projects. Vilakati's sentiments comes at a time when the continent is battling with fake fertilizer imports that have resulted in poor yields. To curb this challenge, the African Union Commission is fostering introduction of systems that will guarantee universal blending standards across the continent. Here's what Vilakati said upon his arrival.
When it comes to fertilizer applications in Africa in general, there are very few countries that are able to meet the expected standards. We are still far below 50 kgs per hectare in terms of application country per country. I think there are probably less than 10 countries that have met that. Yet when we look at Europe, Europe is already applying about 100 to 120. With us in Africa, only less than 10 countries actually applying 50 kg. How are we able to compete? Because our population is increasing, it needs food, which means certain things need to be done when it comes to fertilizer.
The envoy urged member countries to be vigilant when setting fertilizer rules and standards and help reduce the influx of fake products.
But what if the fertilizer, instead of being a 232, is a 230? The farmer would obviously add that fertilizer, but not knowing that the quality standards have been compromised. I think our responsibility, therefore, is to say, if we have the blending plants, we also need to have quality parameters, particularly mainly to be independent of the blending plants, so that every fertilizer that comes is actually checked as to whether it is meeting the minimum, even the minimum standards, because the farmers there will believe what is they are told by the extension officers, because they say, it's from them, so it must be correct.
Meanwhile, Zimbabwe's welcome African Union Commission streamlining of its projects as the country is already ahead regarding promoting agricultural production in rural areas. Professor Obed Jiri, Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of Agriculture, has said,
the issues of encouraging production in every village as we embark on rural development driven by agriculture. So you will see those efforts, but fertilizer is our biggest cost in all these production aspects of agriculture. So we will be happy if the streamlining that is going to happen and the considerations that are going to happen will continue to emphasize on the Africa Center for Fertilizer Development being an African Union agent.
In Harare, Zimbabwe, for Channel Africa News, this is John Cassie.
Ahoy, matey!
Captain here to help, right, boys?
Set sail with us on a digital voyage like no other. Channel Africa has a treasure trove of awesomeness. That is our website and social media pages.
Tell me, why are you here?
We want you to be part of our adventure.
The winds are changing, Captain. And this time...
Imagine a world where curiosity knows no bounds, where entertainment meets enlightenment, and where every click leads to the African perspective. Visit us on our website, www.channelafrica.co.za, or follow us on Instagram or on X at Channel Africa 1. Go on, like us on Facebook at Channel Africa 1. So, spread the word. Tell a friend that Channel Africa's online variety is what they need on the web. Channel Africa, the African perspective.
Mix Vibration sur Channel Africa.
Qu'est-ce qui vous a amené à dire ça? Est-ce que vous avez observé un certain nombre d'événements dans la vie? Est-ce que c'était par rapport à une expérience? Est-ce que vous avez rencontré des choses qui vous ont dit il faut de la patience, comme ça les choses vont venir au bon moment et le bon Dieu pourra peut-être me visiter?
Oui, c'était justement un conseil que le Seigneur m'a fait inspirer pour donner à son peuple, parce qu'il y a la plupart des gens, pendant que Dieu bénit les autres, ils pensent que Dieu les a oubliés, et pendant que Dieu ouvre pour les autres, ils pensent que peut-être Dieu n'a pas pu écouter leurs prières. Alors, ce n'est pas le cas. Alors, Dieu bénit tout un chacun de nous avec son temps. Donc, le temps de Dieu est toujours le meilleur dans la vie de tout un chacun de nous.
Mix Vibration, tous les dimanches, de 18h à 19h, temps universel.
New day, new stories. Start your morning right with Rise and Shine on Channel Africa.
South Africa's Department of Women, Youth and Persons with Disabilities will this week host the Uganda study tour on disability inclusion in social protection systems and programs in Gauteng province. The initiative, organized in partnership with the government of Uganda, the UN World Food Programme or the WFP, and UNICEF, aims to promote knowledge exchange and share best practices for building more inclusive social protection systems across Africa. To tell us more, we're joined by Sindisiwe Chikunga, Minister of Department of Women, Youth and Persons with Disability. Minister, good morning and thank you for making time for us. Not there yet. All right. So our Minister of Department of the Department of Women, Youth and Persons with Disabilities is not yet there. In the meantime, as we get connected to her, let's look at this story now, where Thailand's new head of mission to South Africa, Ambassador Ekapol Pulpipat, says his country is eager to strengthen bilateral ties with Pretoria, particularly in trade, investment and tourism. Speaking to Channel Africa during credentials ceremony at the Sifago Makato Presidential Guest House in Pretoria, Pulpipat described South Africa as a key player on the continent and a vital gateway for deeper engagement between Asian, BRICS and Africa. He also pledged support for South Africa's G20 presidency. President Cyril Ramaphosa received letters of credence from about 18 ambassadors representing various nations. Channel Africa's reporter Michael Mbewe spoke to Thailand's new head of mission to South Africa, Ekapol Pulpipat.
Yes, this is the first time I come to South Africa, not only South Africa, for Africa as a continent. And Thailand's looking forward to strengthening bilateral relations with South Africa, which is the key player in not only regional but global relations and issues. On bilateral relations, Thailand, is a bit far. It's not the matter of distance, but we would like to strengthen bilateral trade and investment. Actually, we have Thai companies who are interested in investing in South Africa, and want to exchange of know-how and technology with South African counterpart. In terms of tourism, was quite some time that we had a direct flight from Thailand to Cape Town. I think that we have to resume this flight connection because the tourists between the two countries increasing. Exchange of visits, and Thailand is a potential for not only for scenery or food, but actually for the medical tourism. I think that many South African friends want to visit Thailand for the medical purpose as well. Actually, it's not only medical, but also wellness. That Thailand is one of the best in the world. We welcome all the South African friends. Besides this, Thailand is now observer of BRICS, and we would like to engage with South Africans and as a member of BRICS. And, I think that the South Africa are also interested in enhancing economic relation with ASEAN, and I understand that the president will attend ASEAN summit in KL, and that's reflect the interest of South Africa, who is now dialogue partner with ASEAN. So that Thailand is a part of it, and I think that is a good opportunity to engage with South Africa through ASEAN, to BRICS, and of course to maximize and our trade relations and technical cooperation.
And what is your view on South Africa's position on trying to be part of the global voice for peace and security? We've seen, South Africa being involved in peace talks, the issues happening in Sudan, in the issues happening in Ukraine, but we also seen South Africa being involved in the issues happening in Palestine. What is your view on South Africa's position on that?
Well, actually, Thailand's share the same value of multilateralism. And again, I mentioned to the president just now that Thailand reaffirmed our commitment to cooperate closely with South Africa to enhance peace, prosperity, and sustainable development and growth. That's in general, yes, we share the same values. That's I think that South Africa has been the key player. Have a big role in those issues you mentioned. Thailand's, to a certain extent, share the same values and position.
Now you are.
That was Thailand's new head of mission to South Africa, Ekapol Polpipat, speaking to Channel Africa's Michael Mbewe. Eight o'clock Central African time it is as we enter the third and final hour of Rise and Shine. We say, good morning, Africa, wake up with us. We are Channel Africa, coming to you live from our Johannesburg studios in South Africa. My name is Asanda Beda, and in this hour we look at Build One South Africa, Rise Mzansi, and the Good Party, these political parties that operate within South Africa. They are joining forces to contest the 2026 local government elections under one banner. We'll find out more about that and their coalition. And also, yesterday, did you know, 5th of October marked World Teachers' Day, a day that's celebrated throughout the world. We'll be talking about that a little later in this hour. Let's start with our news update. Here's Onel Nsinsi with that. And then sports headlines by Musibudi Makura will follow.
SABC News. The African Perspective.
Thank you, Asanda. The International Committee of the Red Cross says the situation in Sudan's Al-Fashir has reached catastrophic levels, with over 260,000 people trapped, surviving on a single meal a day, and medical teams working under fire. The ICRC has called on all sides to respect international humanitarian law and for urgent action to prevent further suffering. The ICRC's regional spokesperson for Africa, Matteo Charamilo, explains.
The situation in El Fasher, as you just mentioned, and that's why we put the statement last week, is catastrophic. We have seen more than 500 days where men, women, children are trapped. They don't have access to drinkable water. They don't have access to food. They don't have access to the basic needs. Many of our colleagues that are now based in Port Sudan, for instance, have families, have relatives in El Fasher, and we were talking with them last week, and they were telling us, I can give you a small example, for instance, now that you were mentioning the access to food.
Thousands of people in Madagascar took to the streets in different parts of the country even over the weekend, the largest wave of protests the Indian Ocean island nation has witnessed in more than 15 years. At least 22 people have reportedly been killed and more than 100 others injured in the unrest. The BBC's Semi Awami.
Unlike the anti-government protests, police in the capital have been seen escorting pro-government protesters as they march through the streets, according to a local journalist. The journalist says that pro-government activists have been visiting the suburbs of the capital to reinforce yesterday's message from the president's speech that the Gen Z protests have been infiltrated by politicians who want to take advantage of the demonstrations to overthrow the government. Yesterday, Madagascar president addressed the public via his Facebook page and warned the nation about what he described as dangerous elements seeking to destabilize the country.
The Madlanga Commission of Inquiry will only resume its public hearings in South Africa, Pretoria, next week. The commission took a break last week after crime intelligence head Dumisani Khumalo fell ill shortly after testifying. Meanwhile, the KwaZulu-Natal Police Commissioner Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi will tomorrow appear before Parliament's ad hoc committee set up to investigate allegations of threats to national security. Mkhwanazi made the allegations, which include corruption, political interference and criminal infiltration of the justice system. Parliament has appointed Advocate Norman Arendse as its evidence leader. He says Mkhwanazi will be the first senior police official to appear before the committee.
It's not the same as the statement that was before the Madlanga Commission. In fact, it is referenced, the Madlanga Commission statement. In fact, we've tried to avoid a repetition, or there are a number of material differences. There is some new matter, some not evidence yet because it hasn't been called yet, but new matter that's also been referred to in the statements.
The late South African ambassador to France, Nathi Mthethwa's brother-in-law, Khulekani Buthelezi, believes the cooperation between the two countries' law enforcement officials will provide answers the bereaved family is seeking. Mthethwa died last week at the age of 58 after falling from the 22nd floor of a hotel in France. Buthelezi was speaking at Mthethwa's home in Kwambonani, where mourners have been paying their respect.
We do. I think you combine different skills to try and get to a certain outcome. In this case, obviously, it's going to be a report that actually gives us the facts of what actually transpired. So we actually appreciate and thank our government for that initiative. We understand that 5 investigators have actually traveled to France. They'll be collaborating with the French authorities, with the investigators at site. So we hope, when you've got a team of different skills, diverse nature, the outcome obviously will be what we expect. We just want the truth, nothing more, nothing less.
Lastly, the U.S. President Donald Trump has warned of more massive bloodshed in Gaza if those involved in efforts to end the war do not move fast. His comments on social media come ahead of indirect talks between Hamas and Israel due to begin in Egypt today. Earlier, the U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio urged Israel to stop bombing Gaza. He says hostages cannot be released in the middle of strikes.
I would like the hostages to have been released yesterday. Now, we need to work through the logistics of how that's going to happen. I mean, and again, that sounds simplistic, but it's not just about, you got to make sure that there's no fighting going on. You have to make sure the Red Cross can get there, what time they're going to be there, where they're going to be. All of that has to be worked through, and that's not easy in the middle of an active war zone. That has to be de-escalated.
Channel African News, I'm Onele Tsinzi.
SABC News. The African Perspective.
And coming up in your sports news this hour, South Africa will face off with Colombia in the World Cup last round of 16 on Thursday, while Amanda Asimonova continued her breakout year with a victory over Linda Noskova to win her second 1000 ATP title. I'll give you details of these and other stories at the bottom of the hour.
New day, new stories. Start your morning right with Rise and Shine on Channel Africa.
África. Conhece o Ntivani? Claro que sou eu. Ntivani é o amante da música de corpo e alma. Eu amo música africana. Ele aprecia todos os tipos de melodias e passa os seus dias a ouvir a Channel Africa. Okay. Adivinha só, a Channel Africa quer ajudar o Ntivani e os amantes da música em todo o lado a descobrir ainda mais música incrível. Por isso, a Channel Africa está a convocar artistas africanos a submeterem as suas músicas. Músicos, lembrem-se de nos dar todas as informações relevantes no music@channelafrica.co.za. As submissões são a vossa oportunidade de ser ouvidos, mas não garantem inclusão na lista. Todas as submissões serão cuidadosamente analisadas para verificar se cumprem os requisitos da nossa estação. Canal África, a perspectiva africana.
Zilipendwa na Abedi Jean de la Croix.
Kabla ya kwenda mbali zaidi, tuanze kwanza kwenye background yako, maana kila kazi, kila jambo linakuwa na historia yake. Riziki Alema ni nani?
Riziki Alema ni mwimbaji wa nyimbo za Injili, ni mama na ni mke pia.
Umesema wewe ni mama wa familia pia. Vipi unagawa muda wako namna gani kwenye masuala ya muziki na majukumu ya familia?
Okay, cha kwanza sio jambo rahisi, lakini anaweza sema upande mwingine ni rahisi kama utakuwa umejitambua. Kwa sababu mbaya ni ile kuchukua masuala ya masaa ya kazi na masaa ya familia na masaa ya huduma. Kwa hivyo ni vizuri tu mimi huwa natenganisha. Nikiwa ndani sio Riziki Alema, sio mwimbaji. Nikiwa ndani najua mimi ni mke na ni mama pia.
Zilipendwa kila Jumamosi kuanzia saa 12 kamili majira ya Afrika ya Kati hadi saa 1 kamili majira ya Afrika ya Kati. Zilipendwa na Abedi Jean de la Croix.
Kabla ya kwenda mbali zaidi, tuanze kwanza kwenye background yako, maana kila kazi, kila jambo linakuwa na historia yake. Riziki Alema ni nani?
Riziki Alema ni mwimbaji wa nyimbo za Injili, ni mama na ni mke pia.
Umesema wewe ni mama wa familia pia. Vipi unagawa muda wako namna gani kwenye masuala ya muziki na majukumu ya familia?
Okay, cha kwanza sio jambo rahisi, lakini anaweza sema upande mwingine ni rahisi kama utakuwa umejitambua. Kwa sababu mbaya ni ile kuchukua masuala ya masaa ya kazi na masaa ya familia na masaa ya huduma. Kwa hivyo ni vizuri tu mimi huwa natenganisha. Nikiwa ndani sio Riziki Alema, sio mwimbaji. Nikiwa ndani najua mimi ni mke na ni mama pia.
Zilipendwa kila Jumamosi kuanzia saa 12 kamili majira ya Afrika ya Kati hadi saa 1 kamili majira ya Afrika ya Kati.
New day, new stories. Start your morning right with Rise and Shine on Channel Africa.
South Africa's Minister for Cooperative Governance and Traditional Affairs, COGTA, Velengosini Hlabisa, has called for renewed determination ethical leadership, and collective action to transform the country's municipalities into capable and accountable institutions. Speaking at the closing of the 2025 local government Indaba on Friday, Hlabisa commended delegates for their honesty, innovation, and commitment during the 2 days of robust discussions on the state of local governance. Channel Africa's reporter Michael Mbewe filed this report.
Your morning companion with the stories that matter. This is Rise and Shine on Channel Africa.
This pivotal gathering brought together over 1,000 delegates nationally from across government, traditional leadership, business academia, civil society, and organized labor, united by a shared commitment to revitalize municipalities and restore public confidence in local governance. In his closing remarks, COGTA Minister Velinkosini Hlabisa was impressed by contributions made by delegates.
We are inspired by the dedication and insight demonstrated by all our participants, our councillors, our municipal managers, our traditional leaders, policy experts, and the civil society representatives, and all the MECs, ministers and deputy ministers who have brought their expertise and passion to the table. Your contributions have underscored the critical role of collaboration, transparency, and professionalism in ensuring that our local government institutions serve the citizens effectively and equitably.
Hlabisa reflected on the 2 days of robust interrogation of current realities of municipalities and further asserted that the proposals emerging from the Indaba will reinforce key reforms of some bills as part of the legislative framework that must be finalized ahead of the next local government elections.
Over these past 2 days, we have interrogated the current realities of our municipalities, governance, instability, administrative capacity gaps, financial constraints, spatial inequalities, and service delivery challenges.
That was South Africa's Minister of Cooperative Governance and Traditional Affairs, Velinkosini Hlabisa, and that report there by Channel Africa's Michael Mbewe. So, Build One South Africa, Rise Mzansi and the Good Party will contest the 2026 local government elections in South Africa under one banner. The new formation is called Unite for Change, and it will focus on 5 key priorities, namely ethical leadership, job creation, crime prevention, corruption, and improving service delivery through digitization. Sibahle Mota filed this report.
Build One South Africa, Rise Mzansi, and the Good Party have joined forces ahead of the 2026 local government elections, forming a new political party called Unite for Change. BOSA Deputy President and the Unite for Change Leadership Council member Nobuntu Hlazo Webster says all parties will unite under one banner.
We are united for change under one name. We will have one set of electoral lists. We will have one shared platform, and we share one purpose. This new political party will be registered with the Independent Electoral Commission, and all current and future parties that will join will run for election under the new name and under this new banner.
Accordingly, the founding members agreed on shared leadership responsibilities within a leaders' council made up of representatives from all 3 parties. Good Party leader Patricia de Lille elaborates.
We have agreed that we're going to have a council of leaders so that doesn't become an issue who must lead. But I think we further agreed that to have an elective conference towards the end of 2027 or 2028.
The new party is calling on South Africans, especially young people, to get involved in rebuilding municipalities and bringing in new leadership. Rise Mzansi leader Songezo Zibi.
It is time for a new and younger generation of leaders. You cannot modernize with old people, with respect. Old ideas and the inflexibility that comes with wanting to do the same things that have been tried and failed on numerous occasions before.
Once registered with the IEC, Unite for Change plans to hold nationwide community dialogues to develop its policy platform ahead of next year's elections. I am Sibahle Mota in Johannesburg.
Right, so the newly launched Unite for Change party says it has a council of leaders instead of one person being at the helm. It will contest next year's local government elections in South Africa, and the party, which is the merger between, as you heard, Build One South Africa, the Good Party, and Rise Mzansi, was launched in Johannesburg yesterday. We're joined now in studio by Musi Maimane, who is leader of the Build One South Africa and member of the National Assembly in the country. Honourable member, how are you this morning?
Good morning, and good morning to fellow Africans. It's great to be here.
Thank you for joining us, and we appreciate your time. So what inspired this coalition? Let's start there. The merger between Build One South Africa, BOSA, Good Party, and Rise Mzansi.
Firstly, I think all of us as South Africans are feeling the imminent sense upon which our councils, our towns, our streets are not working like they used to, or not working well at all. More people are saying we're running out of water. We're feeling like infrastructure maintenance is falling apart. We can't find work. And so we need change. And South Africa can only change when two things happen. The first is it must be governed differently, and it must be governed by different people. And so the governing differently part says to us, this was an inspired move to say at local government, the issues are not ideological. They're really about delivery of basic services. They're really about economic revitalization. And so let's build a platform upon which citizens who share those, which the majority of citizens share those, can be able to endorse, vote for something that they can bring. The second is governed by different people, which when we looked at the electoral prospects and how the local government works, if you sit in a ward, it's no use having a candidate from 10 different parties, because at the end of the day, someone with even doesn't get 50%, they just get the most votes, can win that ward. And the difficulty is that whereas all the other parties, had they been working together, could achieve change. So we're saying, let's make it possible for more people to be elected, but let's go out and select the best candidates, ethical candidates. Let's ensure that we can broaden to a broader aspect of society so that more people can participate. So for me, it is inspired by the moment we live in a country and the desperate need for change that we feel.
So some of the parties, the political parties under the Unite for Change, are part of the government of national unity. Is the Unite for Change in opposition to the current government in South Africa?
The existential question of South Africa, even if you are a subscriber to the government of national unity, is who is going to be the government in our cities. That's an existential question. The reality is that local government has had a number of years of being governed by the same people, and the outcomes are what we're feeling. So even if there's a party inside the GNU, it would agree that for Johannesburg to be governed the way it is, it's going through a rotation of mayors, coalitions that no one understands, people who promised that they weren't going to work with so-and-so, now suddenly after the election say they will work with them. What we are saying now is that let's give you a pre-coalition so that you know it up front. Secondly, what we're saying is that GNU or no GNU, this will be a referendum on the GNU. Let the people test it out. And furthermore, I honestly believe there's a need for change. I really believe that if we answer the question correctly in 2026, the next question will be who is going to be the government in 2029? And we need a different government. We simply cannot sit here and say doing more of the same will achieve different outcomes, because the GNU has been more of the same. Let's be honest with ourselves, because the outcomes are the same.
Talk to us about the promise of one name, one platform, one purpose under the Unite for Change party.
I mean, its starting orientation is to say, can we go out and, first of all, across towns and municipalities in our country, identify the best candidates. Those candidates will sit under one list, which is the Unite for Change. So BOSA will, whatever the BOSA candidates are in their communities who are brilliant, they can apply and they can be part of the Unite for Change. And it'll be the same for Good, it'll be the same for Rise Mzansi. That's the first thing. The second thing is they'll have a shared manifesto, a shared promise to the people, and a shared contract with the people. And I think the contractual bits are important, because when you serve in a municipality or in a town, you are contracted to those voters, so that when those voters say you are not doing what you're supposed to do, they must take you out, and we will facilitate that process. And then the last point is that it'll be a shared campaign, and the 3 different leaders will scour the country. It multiplies the efforts, it multiplies the fundraising possibilities, but it also delivers on the prospect of going, how do we achieve that this platform becomes the one that holds the councillors post the elections that will sit under this one entity. The 3 different parties remain. BOSA will remain, RISE will remain, GOOD will remain, as there will be many civil society organizations and other parties joining. They will remain all the way until 2029. This is an opportunity for this exercise to be able to say, let's put something on the ballot, on the local ballot that works.
As part of the party's roadmap to the 2026 local government elections, what would you say is the type of collective action that is needed to transform our local municipalities?
Yeah, fundamentally, it says, one, when we respond to public service, at one level we stand for public office, but on another level, people have got ideas. I may have a PhD in economics, but that doesn't mean that I have all the ideas. Mayor DeLille, or Patricia DeLille, Minister DeLille, has been a mayor, and so she would understand governance components. Songezo has been in business. There may be other South Africans who understand spatial planning, who understand climate issues, who understand all of those. Let them come and share their ideas. That's an important component. Moving on from that, we're saying in components of how do we elect and select the most ethical, those who are standing, the nomination regulation wants to weed out and attract the best, because professionals are sitting in private sector. They want to serve their country, but the current political infrastructure doesn't allow them to. And when we set out BOSA, actually, in many ways, we wanted to be attractive to people who weren't in politics. And fortunately, the public representatives that we have, this was their first time in politics. And so they were able to introduce a different component. Let's expand that opportunity to more people. Politics is far more important to be left up to politicians. So let's work hard at bringing about a new change. Yeah?
So other political parties can join Unity for Change as well as civil society groups?
Correct. We are engaging them as we speak right now. Many of them are obviously consulting with their structures before obviously by the end of the year, some of them have got conferences, etc. That work will continue. But this is just the start. It's like the 3 parties who got together and say, okay, we'll put the foundation on the table, but more people must come on. And I'm excited because this is an invitation, and I want to make it categorically clear that just the 3 parties is an insufficient threshold to be able to achieve the seismic change that we want. Change requires that even faith-based organizations in this country, civil society, they must all come together to be able to work towards that change.
So while there are, of course, notable opportunities with this collaboration, the 3 parties have been operating separately until this point. So what kind of challenges do you foresee as rising from that? And what have you put in place to be able to tackle those challenges should they arise?
The National Leadership Council, as at this point, will sit together and be able to deal with any disputes that arise that surpass the National Management Committee, which includes the chairpersons of the respective parties, and will open up seats for more parties to participate. And then we've got a professional staff management team that does the execution of the day-to-day running of the organization. So effectively, when there are disputes, they will be able to be escalated in that manner, and ultimately through a consensus generating mechanism, we'll be able to resolve some of the conflicts. And I think, with a sufficient degree of maturity, we've been able to show the fact that there are certain things I don't agree with other leaders on, but you work. Democracy enjoins us to say you're not going to get everything you want. But if you're willing to negotiate, if you're willing to engage, and you are sincere about it, and you hear the other side, in a world that is polarizing, Isn't it important that we at least figure out a way to hear the other side and model that? I've had differences with Patricia de Lille. That is not, but you have to rise above those. So what is in the interest of the country?
And as we speak about what's in the interest of the country, we just wrapped up last week the 2025 local government Indaba here in Joburg. How much of an impact do you think these types of gatherings yield when it comes to the tangible innovation that's needed and the tangible commitment that's needed for local governance?
With respect, South Africa does not need more Indabas and all sorts of commissions and all of that. They happen post facto. There's only one question on the table that speaks to local government. That white paper on local government and its amending is going to be a very important part, because that white paper on local government indicates how local government ought to be funded. So it does ask the question whether the model of 90-10, which is 90% of the revenue coming from the municipality itself and 10% through infrastructure grants from national, whether that thesis holds. If it doesn't hold, let's transform it. So let's deal with the funding question. But then the second issue is, really, the only time South Africa is going to change is who governs it and governing it differently. If we don't elect new people, you can take the fragmentations of the ANC, because the ANC has had its multiple surrogates and its children, whether it's whatever they are. You can vote for those versions. The truth is, they will deliver the same outcomes because the thinking is the same. We need new thinking, new ideas, a new generation of leaders that delivers different outputs. And so I think we need to stop arguing about some of where we've been and the ground we've traversed. South Africa needs to answer the future question. What's the future of Joburg? Are we just going to... Joburg was built on the back of the discovery of gold. Does that thesis hold that this is the city of gold? Because I would argue it's no longer the city of gold. There's no gold being mined here. This is the city now. Should it be the city of innovation? Should it be the city of the care economy? Should it be the city of tourism? Should it be the city of a new educational culture? Should it be the city of commerce? All of those questions are about what is the new city. So that's the future. We can call it the city of gold and keep thinking we'll discover more gold. It's not going to happen.
All right, so let's wrap up then with the tour that's going to be happening this October. That's already started.
Yeah.
You're very busy talking to us at the SABC, and I'm sure you're going to go to other platforms as well. So then what are you hoping to achieve through this tour as Unite for Change?
Throughout October, if we're able to, the success looks like more people saying, I want to stand. The success looks like more new ideas. The success looks like over these next couple of months, being able to not only finalize the nomination regulations, but introduce new exciting mayoral candidates in cities.
All right, thank you.
I think that's what October looks like for me.
Great. It's going to be a busy one, so you need all the energy that you can gather. But thank you so much for making time for us as Channel Africa this morning,
My
Honorable Member.
Thank you very much. Much appreciated.
Nkosi Musi Maimane is the leader of the Build One South Africa. That's a political party here in the country, as well as member of the National Assembly, talking to us about a new formed coalition. It's called Unite for Change, between three parties. That is the Good Party, Rise Mzansi Party, and Build One South Africa. We'll see how it goes. As you heard from him, the party is still open to taking on more parties who want to join like-minded political parties, as well as civil society groups and organizations that align with the vision for Unite for Change. 8:30 Central African time it is here on Rise and Shine. We say good morning now to Onele Nzinzi. She has our news headlines.
New day, new stories. Start your morning right with Rise and Shine on Channel Africa. SABC News. Headlines. The African Perspective.
Thank you, Asanda. Tanzanian opposition leader Tundu Lissu will go on trial today for treason trial that opens weeks before election. The Madlanga Commission of Inquiry will only resume its public hearing in South Africa, Pretoria, next week. The commission took a break last week after crime intelligence head Dumisani Khumalo fell ill shortly after testifying. And the Democratic state governors are railing against the U.S. President Donald Trump's deployment of National Guard troops to America's cities. Channel Africa News, I'm Onele Ntsintsi.
SABC News. Headlines. The African Perspective. Sports on Channel Africa. The African Perspective.
It's a very good morning from the sports desk. I am Musibu Dimakura with the latest sports news at the Sawa. So, African champions South Africa have advanced to the knockout stages of the 2025 FIFA Under-20 World Cup following a 2-1 defeat of the USA in their deciding Group E match at the Estadio El Tene in Chile on Sunday. So, USA scored twice, the opener through Noah Cobb and the other was an own goal by Joshua Winder, while Homolemo Kegana netted the winner to see South Africa finish second in the group, tied on 6 points with the USA in first spot, while France occupy third position after 3 matches played. Let's hear now from the winning coach Amajita coach Raymond Mdaka on their qualification to the last round of 16.
Let me congratulate the boys. I think, honestly, the boys did a very good job. They showed character. They showed that they are the African champions. It was not an easy game. Playing the USA, who has already won 2 games with a number of goals. So it looks like it was a mountain to climb. But then...
Now, so South Africa will face off with Colombia in the last round of 16 on Thursday for a place in the quarterfinals of the global tournament. Coach Mdaka says they need to show the same spirit as well as character in the knockout stages.
The next match is a different one because you will not play for a draw. You will play for the results. So we will grind. We'll continue with the same character, with the same spirit. Whoever we play with will show that we are South Africa and we are here to compete in the tournament.
On to tennis news now. Amanda Anisimova continued her breakout year with a victory over Linda Noskova and to win the China Open and claim her second WTA 1000 title. The American runner-up at Wimbledon as well as the US Open came through a fluctuating match, 6-love, 2-6 and 6-2 against the Czech, who also beat her on the way to the final at the All England Club. Now Noskova, playing in her first WTA 1000 showpiece, won just 12 points in the 23-minute opening set, where she was also on the end of a bagel, losing a set without winning a game. However, with a more aggressive approach, Noskova broke her American opponent in the first game of the second set. The world number 27 recovered well from back-to-back double faults in the next game to consolidate her break and then took the second set to level the match. Still on tennis news, defending champion Jannik Sinner retired Sunday from the Shanghai Masters after suffering a leg injury in his third round match against the Netherlands' Talon Griekspoor. Now, the world number 2 began to experience issues on the 4th game of the third set and tried to persevere, but he went on to abandon that match while he was trailing 6-7, 7-5 and 3-2. So after an evenly matched first set, the 4-time Grand Slam winner showed his teeth in the tiebreak, hitting 2 aces to take an early lead. In the second set, the tension picked up with the Dutchman surviving 3 break points in the second game, but it was Griekspoor who then broke in the 11th game with a backhand, pushing the match into a post-midnight territory. Now, Sinner ended the 4th game of the third set crouched over in pain, limping around the court. His condition did not improve in the 5th game and he hit the ball into the net multiple times, providing an easy break for his opponent before having to be helped to his chair at the end of that game and then calling it quits. And finally, in golf news, Robert McIntyre won his 4th DP World Tour title at the Alfred Dunhill Links Championship, just 1 week on from helping Team Europe defend the Ryder Cup. McIntyre shot third straight 6 under 66, and this time on the old course at St. Andrews, having also done so at the Connoisseur as well as the King Barnes to complete a 4-stroke victory at the home of golf. Now, the third round was postponed on Saturday because of stormy weather, making the event a Pro-Am played over 3 of Scotland's top links courses, a 54-hole tournament. Now, McIntyre earned 1.5 points for the Europeans last week in their win in the Ryder Cup at the Bathpage Black Golf Course, but he then encountered much more hostile conditions when he did encounter much more hostile conditions than he did back home this week. Well, that concludes your sports news this hour. For any sports stories you'd like to share with us, our email address is newsroom@channelafrica.co.za or call us on +27 11714 4459. I'm back with more sports news in the next hour with the On the Move team for Channel Africa Sport. I am Musibudi Makura.
Sports on Channel Africa. The African Perspective. In this episode of Channel Africa Conversations, Peter talks to Dr. Tulisile Beda, an academic, author, and an expert in indigenous knowledge systems. Join us for a compelling discussion on preserving African languages and traditions in the digital era. Dr. Tulisile unpacks the role of educators, explorers, and how technologies like AI can support cultural preservation, and challenges us to rethink how we honor African heritage. You can find the episode on YouTube, SABC Plus, and on our website, channelafrica.co.za. This episode is a must-listen for educators, creators, and change makers across the continent. Channel Africa, the African Perspective.
At 8:37 Central African Time, let's get the latest from the world of business. Here's Chandugoli Gege to get us up to speed.
Business news on Channel Africa. The African Perspective.
Thank you, Asanda. Good morning. Business conditions in Egypt's non-oil private sector declined slightly in September as new orders fell at the fastest pace in 5 months. S&P Global's Egypt Purchasing Managers Index (PMI) slipped to 48.8 last month from 49.2 in August, marking the lowest reading in 3 months. A PMI below 50 indicates contraction. Employment growth stalled after 2 months of small increases, with nearly all firms reporting no change in staffing levels. Input price inflation eased to its lowest rate since March, aided by a strong Egyptian pound against the US dollar. In other news, the African Union Commissioner for Agriculture, Vilakazi Moses Madilane, has bemoaned the low usage of fertilizer on the continent, saying that this has resulted in high food imports. At least $100 billion is spent on imports per year in Africa, yet the continent has the capacity to adequately produce its own food. Vilakazi also called for the development of universal fertilizer blending standards that will deal with fake fertilizer imports. Vilakazi says when it comes to fertilizer applications in Africa in general, there are very few countries that are able to meet the expected standards.
We are still far below 50 kgs per hectare in terms of application country per country. I think there are probably less than 10 countries that have met that. Yet when we look at Europe, Europe is already applying about 100 to 120. With us in Africa, only less than 10 countries actually applying 50 kg. How are we able to compete?
The South African Broadcasting Corporation has denied reports the public broadcaster is planning retrenchments. The SABC says reports claiming that there are plans for retrenchments are simply not accurate. The public broadcaster says in a statement that the SABC continues to operate with strong governance and accountability as confirmed by the Auditor General's unqualified audit opinion for the past financial year and the year before. SABC spokesperson Moni Ngubani.
Where operational challenges are identified, these are addressed internally through established systems and processes and do not warrant the kind of speculation currently circulating.
The Congress of South African Trade Unions says it will observe the International Day for Recent Work today with a National Day of Action. COSATU says the Day of Action will be centered on retrenchments, weak economic growth and the rising cost of living. The Federation says that it will also act on companies that are still not paying workers' pension fund deductions. Solipetwe is COSATU's General Secretary and he had this to say.
The financial sector conduct has released a report that last year with 7,200 companies that are not complying in terms of deducting the money of the pension fund of workers and paid to where it's supposed to the fund. This year it has now increased to 15,000 plus, and we are calling for those companies this year. We have identified those companies that are not complying with the act. One by one would be visiting them province by province, region by regions.
Japanese stocks have hit a record high after the country's ruling Liberal Democratic Party, LDP, named Sanai Takaichi as its new leader, positioning the pro-business politician to be Japan's next prime minister. The benchmark Nikkei 225 index is up by 4.5% in Tokyo after rising above 47,000 for the first time. Takaichi, who has held senior government roles including Minister for Economic Security and Internal Affairs, is known for her support of higher government spending and lower borrowing costs. Investors welcome the announcement of her victory in the LDP leadership race, with shares rising in real estate, technology and heavy industry companies. Now let's shift our focus to financial indicators at this hour. $1 in Nigeria is trading at 1,470 naira, Botswana 13 pula 20, Kenya the dollar is 128 shilling 49, Zambia 23 kwacha 78, BRICS countries $1 in Brazil is 5 real 33, Russia 81 rubles 93, India 88 rupees 72, China 71.13, South Africa 17 rand 21 cents. $1 is 74 pence to the British pound and 85 to the euro. Commodities: gold is at $3,927, platinum at $1,603 per ounce, the price of Brent crude oil at $65.20 a barrel. That's all for now. For any business stories you'd like to share with us, please send us an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za, or you can call us on +27 11714 4459. For Channel Africa Business, I am Chandruko Ligege.
Business news on Channel Africa. The African perspective. We are on Open Views Audio Bouquet. Channel 628.
Chief of South African Armed Forces, General Rudzani Mapwanya, says the military is developing new support systems to better equip troops against cyber threats. He was speaking at a medal parade at Eysterplaat Air Force Base in Cape Town, that's here in South Africa, where 144 soldiers were honored for 30 and 40 years of exceptional service and bravery. The event forms part of a national program recognizing long-serving members of the South African National Defence Force, with similar ceremonies previously held in Port Elizabeth and Bloemfontein. Andy Lembanjwa reports.
Honoring men and women who served, dedicated, and sacrificed their lives because of their love for their country. The Chief of the South African National Defence Force, General Rudzani Mapwanya, has lauded their resilience and unwavering patriotism. Mapwanya says they are developing a support structure to ensure that South African troops have sufficient equipment to deal with cyber attacks. He says there's a strong need for artificial intelligence to respond to cyber security threats.
In terms of planning for the South African National Defence Force equipment, you prepare now and plan for the future. Like I said during the parade, that we are supposed to face contemporary challenges, and contemporary challenges are technological of nature, and therefore we are building a defence force that is resilient and will be able to address both issues that comes with artificial intelligence aspects.
Mapwanya says a border optimization plan is on the cards to address security challenges in South Africa. He says the plan remains the cornerstone of the primary function of the SANDF of defending the territorial integrity of South Africa. Mapanya says equipment deployed to the Eastern Democratic Republic of Congo is on its way back home. It was part of a South African Development Community peacekeeping mission to stabilize the region. Sadly, 14 SA troops were killed in an ambush during clashes with M23 rebels not far from the city of Goma.
What is currently happening, we have got signatures from the SADC Secretariat with regard to the backloading of the equipment. Remember, our equipment was still in Chato. Personnel had been repatriated, so we have started with the repatriation of equipment to Malawi because, remember, this is a SADC effort. So to Malawi, we started yesterday, and we are also now going to load South African equipment. Both the air and the maritime element will be utilized for backloading of our equipment.
The recipients say they are honored. Mario Bryan, who has been in the service for 33 years, says it hasn't been an easy journey.
Being a soldier is not easy. So I left home as a 19-year-old, and it's difficult to be so far from home, doing very, very harsh training. When you are done with your training and you start deploying, then you are away from home twice. You are away from home from your mother's house. You are away from home from your wife and your kids. It makes it very difficult. And when you deploy to other regions, you are not used to those weathers and everything that is happening there. So you have to adapt.
Patience Nozimele Sikasa says she is happy to be one of the recipients.
I was so happy in a way that I couldn't believe that it's me. I've been going through difficulties. I lost my parents, I lost my brothers, my families. It's not easy to reach 40 years on a service, but through God and the support that I'm getting from my officer commanding, my superior, and the all arms of service, here I am today. I'm reaching my 40 years on the 3rd of October. And October, that's my birthday also. So I'm feeling happy, glad, I'm very much happy.
The SANDF says the parade comes at the time when it has declared that it will strengthen the Defence Force to showcase its role in support of the community development and disaster risk response. I'm Andile Mbanjwa in Cape Town.
Sunday, 5th October, marked World Teachers' Day, celebrated under the theme Recasting Teaching as a Collaborative Profession. This theme underscores the importance of teamwork and shared learning in transforming education systems across the continent. Today, we're joined by Louis Kahisho, a distinguished educator who also serves as Pedagogical Deputy Director at the ADPP Teacher Training School in Kwanza North in Angola. Thank you for joining us, Louis. How are you this morning?
Thank you very much. I'm fine. I'm very happy to share our daily work as human people to people.
And we appreciate your time. This year's World Teachers' Day theme, it focuses on recasting teaching as a collaborative profession. What does this theme mean to you personally? And how does collaboration play a role in the teaching approach?
For me, this theme reflects the reality of teaching in rural areas, communities. Collaboration is not like optional, it's essential. Teachers succeed when they work hand in hand together with the colleagues. And it's also with communities, with parents, with students, and it reflects also my daily work at ADPP here in Angola as part of Humana People to People. At ADPP Angola, we train teachers not just to teach, but to live and work within the community to build trust and to mobilize local resources. Collaboration allows us to innovate, adapt, and make education relevant for every learner to matter where they are.
Talk to us through some of the challenges that teachers face in today's current climate and how collaboration tackles these challenges or aims to.
Especially teachers in rural areas. And we are always working in rural areas. Isolation, it is one of the challenge. And another one is like a shortage of resources. And infrastructures also in these areas, it's a challenge. And collaboration turns this challenge into opportunity by connecting teachers one another and with communities also. We create networks among all of us, teachers, students, communities. When we stick together, this collaboration makes possible to face these challenges. And when it comes to climate change and global warming, no one can go alone. No one can mitigate or adapt alone without collaborating with others around.
So what are some of the key innovative methods or projects that earned you this continental recognition that you now hold?
Yes.
Louise, are you there?
Yes, should you repeat the question?
What are the kind of innovative methods or projects that you implemented that earned you this recognition, this continental recognition that you hold?
Just the continental recognition, starting in partnership with African Union. It's first, it came from our experience in teaching in rural area, because we are implementing, we're running 33 teacher training colleges in 6 countries of Africa, in Angola, Mozambique, Malawi, Republic Democratic of Congo, our experience shows that really we need to recognize, we need support in the rural areas. As we know, nearly 70% of population in Africa, we are living in rural areas, and teachers working in rural area really make it possible to reach the global goals of UNESCO, the Sustainable Development Goal number 4, inclusive, equity, and quality education for all. So we decided to start as part of rural teacher to start this recognition within African Union prize for the teachers.
So what message would you like? Yeah.
Yes.
What message would you like to share with fellow teachers across Africa who are working tirelessly to make a difference in their classrooms and in their communities? Ultimately, those changes that happen in the classroom will filter out into their communities.
Dear teachers all over the world, especially working in rural areas, you are the heroes. And please open yourself to collaborate with the others. So we stick together. We face all our daily challenges together. What you are doing, what we are doing together is what the world needs, especially our continent, where nearly 70% of the people is living in rural area, and education will really make it possible to develop our country, our continent, our world, and so climate change and all the challenges we have in the world. Please, let's stick together and collaborate among one another.
Luis, thank you so much again for your time, and we appreciate it here at Channel Africa, and of course the impact that you have on your community as a teacher, a profession that is absolutely critical to the growing of our communities, the growing of our children. Our future is in your hands. So thank you, Luis.
Thank you very much. Thank you all.
Our pleasure. Luis Kahisho is an educator and pedagogical deputy director at the ADPP Teacher Training School in Kwanza North, Angola, talking about World Teachers Day. That day is commemorated on the 5th of October.
Nkhanza zokhudza amuna ndi azimayi kapena kuti gender based violence GBV zikuwononga mioyo komanso kuphwasula midzi zikuchitika m'manyumba, m'masukulu, malo ogwirira ntchito ndipo kwambiri mwakachetechete, koma sizikuyenera kupitirira. Mukazimva yankhulani, ngati mwakhudzidwa funani chithandizo, chifukwa kusachita chilichonse sikuthandiza. Mverani kuma wireless onse 14 a SABC kuchokera lachitatu pa 23 mwezi uno wa Julai kuti mumve zokambirana, malangizo, masewero, zionetsero za maphunziro ndi mafunso okhuza nkhanza za amuna ndi azimayi ndi akatswiri, anthu opulumuka ku nkhanzazi, okhazikitsa lamulo komanso dziko lonse lokhudzidwa ndi nkhanzazi. Zonsezi pa wireless yomwe mumayikonda ya SABC. Imbirani pa nambala 0800 428 428 kuti munene za nkhanzazi kapena kupeza chithandizo. Nkhanza zokhuza amuna ndi azimayi zimatha ndi inu. Kutenga ukufikani kuchokera ku SABC.
Okay, as we wrap up, Rise and Shine on Channel Africa, On the Move is coming up next with Palesa and Benjamin. And Palesa is joining us to tell us what to expect today. How was the weekend, ma'am?
Oh, the weekend was beautiful, Asanda. How are you doing?
I'm good, thank you.
I heard you lost somebody in between the show, Peter.
Yeah, he's not well. He's not well at all.
Okay, it's all right. Hopefully he'll be much, much better tomorrow. Well, today on The Move from 9 a.m., as you just heard, we just played one of the promos here on Channel Africa, gender-based violence focus, and we still continue with those conversations. And today we're going to be speaking about elderly abuse, whether in the home or sometimes even in spaces that are supposed to be taking care of the elderly. They do really suffer physical, emotional, sexual, and sometimes financial harm. So we'll be focusing on that in today's gender-based violence focus in the first hour of the show. We move on to our African view. There was recent story coming out of South Africa that both men and women will be able to share equal parental leave. And that's going to be the debate topic for today. Should men who are not primary caregivers still be entitled to parental leave? That's going to be the debate for the day. So we're looking forward to hear what our debaters are going to be saying about this. We wrap up in the final hour of today's shows with fitness and nutrition, speaking to someone who's been trending quite a lot. His name is Kopano Mukele, and he went online. He is a fitness coach, and he went online to gain weight and then lose it again. And he'll be joining us in studio to speak about, documenting this particular journey, but also what messages he's trying to bring out on health or losing weight being more than just how you look or your BMI.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
To gain weight just in order to show
every day
people
he vlogged gaining weight bit by bit. He gained around 30 kilograms, and then he continues to document on how he loses the weight again.
30 kilograms is a lot.
It is a lot.
Does it not take a toll on someone's heart?
Oh, it certainly did take quite a bigger toll on him.
And of course he sought medical
of course.
Advice, right?
Yeah.
Sure. I don't know. Yeah, that's crazy. All right. Well, that's coming up then on the Move here on Channel Africa. From me, Asanda Beda, And the rest of the Rise and Shine team, it's goodbye for now. We'll be back together from 6 till 9 in the morning tomorrow, bright and early. Let's hand you over now to the news. Here's Onele Nzinzi.